Chapter 214. On the long street of the imperial city, in a secluded alleyway, in front of Fong Fong's little store. The cold moonlight spilled down from the heavens, shining on a fat black dog that was strutting its enchanting cat-like steps in the alleyway, leaving a long shadow on the ground. Blackie calmly gazed at the bald donkey in front of him. A bald donkey that dared to stab the Lord Go with a dagger. At this moment, Shangda felt as if 10,000 large black dogs were galloping through his mind. The fat dog in front of him actually knew how to speak. What was up with a dog that knew how to talk? Forcefully suppressing the fear in his heart, he crawled up from the ground. His mind raced, and he quickly figured out the situation. A dog that knows how to talk. What the F***ck? Don't tell me this is the terrifying spirit beast that Zhao Mushing mentioned? It was as if a bolt of lightning had flashed through the young monk's heart, instantly illuminating the haze. He looked at the black dog as if he had seen a ghost. The powerful spirit beast that he had been guarding against for half a day turned out to be the target of his sneak attack today. At this moment, Shangda really wanted to curse. His eyes were filled with tears and his face was filled with grief and indignation. He felt like he had been deeply deceived. How could a powerful spirit beast be a fat dog? How could a fat dog be a powerful spirit beast? Blackus strutted its cat-like steps, the corners of its mouth curled up into a human-like mocking smile. Shangda's heart palpitated at the sight. He suddenly felt a little regretful. Why did he come looking for trouble with this black dog just to satisfy his momentary desire for good food? From your body, Lord Go, I can feel a killing intent, Blackie calmly said. Its voice was extremely gentle and magnetic. Why would you feel a killing intent toward a dog? Lord Go calmly asked as he stopped his cat-like steps and looked at Shangda. The young monk's eyes widened, then he abruptly slapped his head. Then, under the indifferent gaze of the Lord Go, he abruptly rose from the ground and stomped on the wall, intending to escape into the distance in an instant. Blackie looked at the flustered bald donkey and stuck out its tongue to lick the dainty dog paw that was gently raised. I'm asking you a question, why are you running? Blackie mumbled to itself. Then, its doggy paw suddenly swung toward Shangda's back. There was only one thought in Shangda's mind right now, and that was to run. It was as though his heart was overturning the seas. Although he couldn't sense any spiritual energy fluctuations from the fat dog, he couldn't summon the slightest desire to resist when he looked at it. That feeling was the same as when he faced the 8th grade spirit beast in the endless desert. At that time, he was only a 5th grade battle king. Facing an 8th grade spirit beast was the same as now. Oh, that 8th grade spirit beast could speak as well. What the hell? When encountering a talking spirit beast, there was only one thing to do, run. Bang. The moment the word run appeared in Shami's mind, a frightening pressure surged from behind him. Shami's body stiffened and he was slammed to the ground, unable to move. Tell me, why did I use a dagger to stab you, Lord Go, in the middle of the night? Blackie raised its dainty dog paw and muttered. The young monk's face was filled with fear. It was as if all the muscles in his body were shackled by frightening shackles, rendering him unable to move at all. This feeling of threat was even more frightening than the one he felt when facing the 8th grade spirit beast. What the hell, this dog? Lord Go has a feeling that you, bald donkey, are up to no good. Why don't you tell me? Or else this will be your fate. Lord Go said. Crack. The young monk was sprawled on the ground, cold sweat pouring out of his body. His pupils suddenly constricted as he saw the floor tile near his head shatter into pieces. A small dog paw print appeared on it. Lord Go, brother dog. I say, you have to be magnanimous. The young monk was on the verge of tears. How could he bully someone like this? Blackus snorted and rolled its eyes. What a cowardly bald donkey. I came here late at night because I admire your mighty and majestic figure, Lord Go, so I wanted to. The young monk Shangda's head was covered in cold sweat. Should he speak or not? So what do you want? Lord Go glared at him and asked. So I wanted to borrow a piece of dog meat and have a taste. The young monk's heart trembled, and he immediately spat out the words he was hesitating about. His mouth twitched and his heart trembled. Damn it! Sure enough, in the next moment, a terrifying pressure surged out from behind him. Are you saying that you want to eat dog meat? Boom! As if a terrifying beast had awakened from its slumber, the oppressive energy instantly enveloped the entire imperial city. At this moment, the entire imperial city was in an uproar. All the battle saints who were sleeping soundly were so scared that they almost peed their pants. They suddenly opened their eyes and rushed out of their rooms. Their hearts trembled as they felt the terrifying aura that enveloped the entire imperial city. This aura was too majestic. At this moment, no matter which battle saint it was, they were all trembling. In the inn, Yen opened her eyes. With a slight twist of her slender figure, she rose into the air and dashed out of the room. A delicate figure followed behind her. Sister Yen, this aura, could it be an 8th grade spirit beast? Yi Xiling didn't know when, but she had already retrieved the longbow that she had been carrying on her back. She gripped it tightly, her palms filled with sweat. No, this aura is a little strange. It seems to be even more vigorous than an 8th grade spirit beast, and Yen frowned. She felt that this aura was somewhat familiar, as if she had sensed it somewhere before. No matter what, the imperial city is about to fall into chaos. Yen murmured. Miss, do we still make a move? Master Ah Wu's body trembled. Sensing the aura, his face turned ugly. There was actually such a terrifying existence in the imperial city. This aura was no weaker than that of the manor lord. Since when did the light-wind imperial city have such a deep foundation? No. While they are all stunned by this aura, let's make a move and rescue them. Wu Yunbai clenched her teeth and said. Master Ah Wu's face froze. Alright, it seemed like they had to make a move. They left the serpent man Anai at the door to act as backup. With a leap, the two of them flipped over the wall and entered. The young monk was trembling all over. I said I wouldn't say it. Look at you, you're so angry just because I said it. The young monk's heart was filled with bitterness. He really just wanted to catch a fat dog and eat its meat. Who would have thought that a fat dog that was almost the size of a pig would be such a terrifying existence, hidden in the shadows? Eat dog meat? Who gave you the guts to eat dog meat? Blackie was enraged. Its fur was glowing brightly. Boom boom. The bricks on the ground couldn't withstand its aura and crumbled into pieces. Lord Go. Let's talk this out. A burst of light burst forth, and the Buddhist aura enveloped the young monk. He actually broke through Blackie's pressure and leaped up. A faint image of a giant Buddha appeared around him. Bang! However, before he could say anything else, a monstrous dog paw viciously smashed into him. The Buddhist aura shattered like fragile glass. The young monk shot out like a shooting star. His body was almost scorched in midair. His night clothes were torn and the skin on his body was torn. His entire body looked like it was squashed flat as he spat out blood. Boom boom. A loud sound came from the imperial city in the dark night. Terrifying waves of energy spread out before everything returned to normal. The city walls at the edge of the imperial city were deeply caved in. A huge pit appeared and bricks fell from it. A figure struggled out with great difficulty. His entire body was dripping with blood as he stood up shakily. From his chest, a broken Buddhist sarira fell out. That damned fat dog. Cough cough, what bad luck. The young monk Shangde was completely covered in blood. He was frightened out of his wits. If not for that precious Buddhist sarira blocking most of the attack for him, he would have been turned into minced meat by now. After eating dog meat all day, he was finally beaten by a dog. He reaped what he sowed. Dragging his broken body, the young monk's heart was filled with sorrow as he walked toward Zhao Mushing's mansion. The black puppy was fuming with white smoke from its nose. It only shook its head after the young monk was out of sight. With a snort, it lay down by the door again. Upstairs, Bufang leaned against the window and helplessly curled his lips as he looked at the shattered ground of the alleyway. I told you to be gentle. Be careful of the floor tiles. You broke them again. It seemed like he would have to call someone to repair it tomorrow. Bufang sighed. He closed the window, climbed into bed, and went back to sleep. Tonight, all the battle saints in the Imperial City would have insomnia. Chapter 2:15. A gorgeous courtyard, pavilions, and the winding goblets. The sound of flowing water reverberated from the artificial mountains. Moonlight shone down from the night sky and illuminated the entire courtyard. It reflected the flowing water in the courtyard and sparkled like stars in the sky. Two silhouettes gently landed on the ground without making a sound. Master Ah Wu followed behind Wu Yunbai with a solemn expression. This courtyard was the courtyard where the serpent men were being held captive, which was also where Zhao Mushing was staying. Mississippi. Be careful. Since Zhao Mushing insisted on bringing Onerbu here, he must have set up a trap or ambush here, Master Ah Wu cautiously said. Wu Yunbai nodded. She had thought of this as well. Zhao Mushing would not be unprepared in order to deal with Onerbu. The courtyard was eerie and quiet. Only the sound of flowing water could be heard, bringing with it a chilling atmosphere. Let's go. Let's find the place where the serpent men are imprisoned, Wu Yunbai said. The two of them stealthily moved forward. Inside a room in the courtyard, Zhao Mushing stood with his hands behind his back. On the table beside him, a steaming teacup was placed. The aroma of tea permeated the room. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth curled up. He raised the teacup, drank it in one gulp, narrowed his eyes, and slowly left the room. As he walked out of the room, the slight chill in the air made him exhale a breath of hot air. Surging spiritual will surged out. With one step, he leaped into the air. Within the courtyard, the roar of a beast was suddenly heard. The roar was deafening, threatening to overturn the entire courtyard. Maniacal laughter resounded in the courtyard. Boom boom. The collision of true energy caused a violent shockwave. The courtyard suddenly turned into a terrifying battlefield. Zhao Mushing curled up the corner of his mouth. Finally, they took the bait. Stepping into the air, he came to the top of the courtyard. Below him, a chaotic battle had broken out. Several figures were surrounding two figures. It's not Bufang? Zhao Mushing was slightly stunned. He realized that the one surrounded by a group of experts was not Bufang. Ha ha! Zhao Mushing, are these two guys our targets this time? He thought. Can we really get the 5 stripes path understanding tree by capturing them? A tyrannical voice rang out. On top of a ferocious black panther sat a muscular, bare-chested man. The burly man laughed loudly at Zhao Mushing, who was floating in the air. Surrounding the burly man were 3 other experts who were also controlling spirit beasts. These people surrounded Wu Yunbai and Master Ah Wu. Master Ah Wu grabbed a serpent man with one hand, his face pale and solemn. Sure enough, Zhao Mushing had set up an ambush, but he did not expect it to be this terrifying: 4 7th-grade battle saints and 2 6th-grade spirit beasts. This lineup was truly invincible within the Imperial City. He did not expect Zhao Mushing to think so highly of Onerbu that he would set up so many experts to ambush a mere 5th-grade battle king. Wu Yunbai's body was surging with true energy as she stood solemnly in the middle of the encirclement. Someone from the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands? A mighty expert from the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands actually colluded with a mere Mahayana island. You guys are really shameless, Wu Yunbai said coldly. Wu Yunbai was no stranger to the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands, because it was also a major force comparable to the White Cloud Villa. However, the two were located in different locations. The White Cloud Villa was located in the illusory spirit swamp, while the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands were located in the heart of the Wildlands. However, only the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands could mobilize so many battle saints. A mere Buddhist sect of the Mahayana island would not be able to mobilize so many battle saints. Yo, a Xiao Bai like you knows about the godly temples of the wildlands? Looks like you have quite a background. The burly man sitting on top of the panther sneered at Wu Yunbai. Zhao Mushing landed on top of a rockery, frowning at Wu Yunbai and Master Ah Wu. Why are you the rescuers? Where's Bufang? Wu Yunbai only glanced at Zhao Mushing without saying a word. Forget it. Since you guys are risking your lives for Bufang, I'm afraid your relationship with Bufang is not simple. Capturing you guys to negotiate with Bufang is the same. Zhao Mushing said calmly, then looked at the battle saints below. Capturing them will give you the opportunity to exchange for the 5 stripes path understanding tree. Everyone, for the 5 stripes path understanding tree, what are you waiting for? Hee, Zhao Mushing, I hope you guys are not lying to me, or else you will regret it. The burly man glanced at Zhao Mushing, sneered, and then whistled. Suddenly, the panther he was riding burst forth. Rumble. Within the imperial city, the sound of explosions reverberated incessantly. Terrifying gusts of wind howled, threatening to engulf everything. A figure dashed out, carrying a serpent man in each hand. He landed outside the courtyard. Anai, who was waiting outside the courtyard, suddenly paled. Go. Let's go first. Miss is covering our retreat, let's go. Master Ah Wu said coldly, his face as gloomy as water. Ani's heart skipped a beat. Without a word, he summoned his true energy and followed Master Ah Wu. The sound of explosions continued to reverberate in the courtyard, accompanied by sharp sword beams. The shock waves of the battle had long been transmitted to the entire imperial city. Many battle saints quietly released their consciousness, paying attention to the earth-shattering battle in the courtyard. A figure dressed in a fiery red robe swayed in the air. He rubbed his slender fingers, calmly observing the battle in the courtyard. Mu Sheng, that idiot, stirring up such a commotion at this time, isn't he just foolishly sticking his head out? The terrifying aura of a suspected 8th-grade spirit beast has just dissipated, and you're already stirring up trouble with such great fanfare. Mu Lingfeng curled his lips and said disdainfully. The store with the path understanding tree was suspected to be guarded by an 8th-grade spirit beast. This was not good news for him. An 8th-grade spirit beast was very strong, and with such a spirit beast around, he would have to pay a hefty price to obtain the 5 stripes path understanding tree. Looks like I'll have to ask the elder for help. I must obtain the 5 stripes path understanding tree. Mu Lingfeng's eyes narrowed. With a flick of his fingers, a fiery red bird appeared in his hand. After muttering a few words, the bird chirped, flapped its wings, and flew away. When the elder reaches the imperial city, the 5 stripes path understanding tree should be ripe and bearing fruit. When that time comes, it's time to make our move. Mu Lingfeng took a deep breath, took one last look at the battle below, and silently cursed at the idiot before drifting away. Wu Yunbai's mouth was dripping with blood. Her chest was heaving, and the arm holding the cloud-rising sword was trembling. Although she had the cloud-rising sword, it was still very taxing for her to fight against so many experts alone. Fortunately, she still had the jade talisman from the White Cloud Villa. Using it, she was able to escape. Otherwise, she might have really died there. After all, the experts from the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands were no pushovers. Clutching the semi-divine weapon cloud-rising sword, Wu Yunbai pressed on her wound and sped away. Suddenly, her face froze as she looked into the distance. Over there, a ragged and miserable bald man was dragging his heavily injured body towards her. Why would a beggar be wandering around the imperial city in the middle of the night? Wu Yunbai swallowed the blood in her mouth and cast a doubtful glance at the miserable bald man. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed as she recognized the man. It's you! Wu Yunbai naturally recognized the bald Shangde. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Wasn't this bald man the guy who had been the messenger for Zhao Mushing? The bald Shangde was currently in a state of confusion. For the sake of eating dog meat, he was almost slapped to death by a dog. He was so unlucky that just as he struggled his way to Zhao Mushing's residence, he ran into a sword-wielding Xiao Bai who was glaring at him with a murderous expression. What had he done to deserve this? Damned bald donkey! Go to hell! Wu Yunbai bellowed. The cloud-rising sword wrapped in a fierce sword light slashed at the bald Shangda. With a splat, blood splattered everywhere. The bald Shangda was sent flying with a look of despair as blood splattered everywhere. Wu Yunbai pressed on her wound. Sensing the sound of something piercing through the air behind her, she glanced at the bald donkey on the ground and snorted. Then, she sped away and disappeared into the night. The wind was howling, and it was miserable. With tears in his eyes, the bald Shangda gazed at the two bright moons in the night sky. He swore that he would never eat dog meat again. Early in the morning, the first ray of sunlight shone through the window onto Bufang's face, causing the sleeping Bufang to wrinkle his nose and open his eyes. It was another beautiful day. Bufang got out of bed, washed up, and went to the kitchen to begin his daily knife and carving training. After completing his training, Bufang cooked a portion of sweet and sour ribs, carried it out of the store, and placed it in front of Blackie. "Blackie, it's time to eat," Bufang called out softly. However, he was a little surprised, because Blackie, who was usually excited at the sight of sweet and sour ribs, just lazily glanced at it this morning and walked over with a face full of smugness. It seemed that this fat dog was still depressed about last night's incident. Bufang was a little curious. What on earth did that guy do last night to make Blackie so unhappy until now? But since Blackie did not say, he naturally could not figure it out. Walking back into the store, a faint fragrance wafted through the air. Bufang gazed at the 5 stripes path understanding tree in the corner, his face revealing a look of surprise. There were actually 3 round and adorable little green fruits emerging from the path understanding tree. The fragrance was emanating from these fruit. The 5 stripes path understanding tree was actually starting to bear fruit. Chapter 216. Bufang raised his eyebrows and slowly walked to the front of the 5 stripes path understanding tree. A fragrant aroma assailed his nostrils, bringing with it an aura that could clear one's mind. The leaves of the path understanding tree rustled and rustled. The veins on the tree seemed to come to life. Each vein was so conspicuous. Between the lush green leaves, 3 perfectly round green fruits were faintly discernible. The fruits were not big and were a little green. Faint cloud patterns floated on the surface, giving some resemblance to the 3 stripes path understanding fruit. Reaching out his hand, Bufang's slender fingers gently stroked the fruit. A faint spirit energy rippled out, bringing with it an icy cold aura that spread from his fingers to his entire body. It made Bufang feel a little refreshed. Looks like it's really going to mature. Bufang's mouth twitched, feeling a little delighted. From a seed germinating to a fruit, Bufang could be said to have watched this 5 stripes path understanding tree grow up. His heart was somewhat touched. Letting out a light breath, Bufang stood up, took a serious look at the 5 stripes path understanding tree, then turned around and entered the kitchen. The store began its business as usual. The aroma of the dishes lingered in the store, causing the diners to squint their eyes in intoxication. Ouyang Xiaoyi skipped over. She was already used to coming to the store to work every day. She felt that it was much better than staying at home and cultivating mindlessly. Although she came to help out every day, she did not neglect her cultivation. The cultivation atmosphere in the store was excellent. With the existence of the 5 stripes path understanding tree, the path understanding tone emitted every day was a great addition to cultivation. Xiaoyi, serve the dishes. Bufang's faint voice drifted out from the kitchen. Ouyang Xiaoyi came to the window and carried away the egg-fried rice that was exuding a rich and mesmerizing aroma. After working as a waitress for so long, she had long become immune to the aroma of dishes. Although she would occasionally succumb to the aroma, she was much better than most people. This was also one of the difficulties that waitresses in the store had to overcome. After placing the egg-fried rice in front of a customer, Ouyang Xiaoyi smiled and took a few steps back. Suddenly, she turned her head to look outside the door and saw several figures walking in. "Where's Owner Bu? Quick, call Owner Bu out." Wu Yunbai, whose face was as pale as a thin sheet of paper, walked in. Behind her was a worried Master Ah Wu. And I and Yu Fu were behind them, supporting an unconscious serpent person. Ouyang Xiaoyi looked at the serpent man curiously. She was quite curious about this strange race. "You guys wait, the smelly boss is in the kitchen," Ouyang Xiaoyi said. After spending so much time with Owner Bu, Ouyang Xiaoyi's words had become somewhat concise and comprehensive. "Master Ah Wu, don't worry. Let's find a place to sit down first." Wu Yunbai's voice was a little weak. Her pretty face was deathly pale and her lips were completely drained of blood. Master Ah Wu nodded and pulled out a chair for Wu Yunbai. Yu Fu looked at the interior of the store with some fear. Was this Senior's store? After so many trials and tribulations, they had finally arrived. Yu Fu's charming face was covered with scars. Many of the scales on her serpent tail were torn open and covered in wounds. After a long while, Bu Fong wiped off the water stains on his hands and walked out of the kitchen. He saw Wu Yunbai and the others and nodded at them. His gaze fell on serpent person Yu Fu, then looked at the unconscious serpent person Yu Feng and slightly furrowed his brows. That serpent person Yu Feng's breath was even weaker than before. It was obvious that he had suffered serious injuries during the process. "You're hurt." Bu Feng's gaze finally fell on Wu Yunbai. He looked at her and asked calmly, "Just a small injury. It's nothing serious." Wu Yunbai's face was deathly pale, but she still forced herself to say that. "Owner Bu, I knew that Zhao Mushing was up to no good. He insisted that you go there with the goal of killing you. If it was Owner Bu yesterday, I'm afraid he would have died many times over. Fortunately, the young miss broke through to 7th grade Battle Saint yesterday. Otherwise, I'm afraid it would have been a disaster," Master Ah Wu said indignantly. "This Zhao Musheng was really despicable. He actually joined forces with the people from the Shrine of the Wildland. If the Manor Master was here, given Zhao Musheng's guts, he would have been slapped to death by the Manor Master." However, when Wu Yunbai was injured, Master Ah Wu used a runic array to send a secret message back to the manor. The manor had already dispatched one of the 4 great commanders, Commander Zhang Kong. When the time came, this Zhao Mushing would still be slapped to death. Zhang Kong was an 8th grade war god. "Oh, then you guys are in luck." Bu Fong was not too surprised by Master Ah Wu's words. Zhao Mushing dared to mess with him, so he must have made ample preparations. After all, he, Zhao Mushing, had suffered a loss at his hands last time. However, he was quite curious about what the Shrine of the Wildlands was. "Since you're injured, I recommend you try the store's new dish. Perhaps it will help with your injuries," Bu Fong said seriously as he looked at Wu Yunbai. Wu Yunbai was taken aback. Her injuries were so severe that ordinary elixirs would not be effective. Could it be that a dish would help? However, when she thought of Bu Fong's specialty, elixir cuisine, her eyes suddenly lit up. That's right. The chef in front of her was not an ordinary chef. Perhaps there really was a way. A new dish. Wu Yunbai immediately looked at the menu behind her with anticipation. After scanning through it once, her gaze locked onto the newest dish that had appeared. Dragon blood meat donburi? Wu Yunbai was slightly taken aback. The name of this dish was a novelty to her. 200 crystals per serving. That's quite expensive. Wu Yunbai gasped and said, "The taste is not bad, and it should have some effect on the recovery of your injuries," Bu Fong said seriously. "Then give me 1 serving. Crystals are not a problem. It's more important to heal Mrs. injuries." Before Wu Yunbai could speak, Master Ah Wu urged impatiently. Bu Fong nodded, turned around and headed for the kitchen. When he passed by the cowering serpent woman Yu Fu, he paused and said, "You guys wait for the opening hours to end." And I wanted to say something but stopped. Looking at Bufang's back as he entered the kitchen, he could not say anything. Back in the kitchen, Bufang took out the dragon blood rice from the clay pot. After washing it, he gave the rice washing water to Xiaoyi for her to fertilize the 5 stripes path understanding tree. After putting the dragon blood rice into the steamer, Bufang began to make the beef donburi. He took out the tenderloin of the wandering dragon cow and twirled the kitchen knife in his hand. When Bufang walked out of the kitchen with the dragon blood meat donburi, the aroma of donburi and dragon blood rice permeated the air, causing everyone to take a deep breath. "Here's your dragon blood meat, donburi. Please enjoy." Bufang placed the dish in front of Wu Yunbai and said. Wu Yunbai's eyes sparkled as she looked at the donburi. But soon, her eyes revealed a trace of disappointment, because this donburi was not the elixir cuisine she had imagined. If it was not an elixir cuisine, would it still have the same effect? Wu Yunbai did not know, but she still scooped a spoonful of dragon blood rice into her mouth under the envious gazes of the surrounding people. Hot. Fragrant. This was the first impression that this donburi left on her. The scalding heat in her mouth accompanied by the rich aroma instantly covered her tongue, causing her taste buds to go slightly numb. The dragon blood rice was chewy, and the donburi was even more fragrant. The beef in the donburi was from an unknown spirit beast, but it brought a wonderful texture to the mouth. After chewing for a while, Wu Yunbai's pale face returned to a rosy color. It was unknown whether it was because of the rising heat or because of her recovery from her injuries. Wu Yunbai stretched her fair neck and swallowed the rice in her mouth. In the next moment, her eyes lit up. Following that, the spoon in her hand did not stop moving. She kept scooping rice into her mouth. Scooping rice into her mouth, Bufang was very satisfied with Wu Yunbai's table manners. When it came to delicacies, one should eat without restraint. That kind of unrestrained taste was the true respect for delicacies. If one ate with restraint, it could only mean that one's dishes were not delicious enough. Wu Yunbai's eyes widened as she continued to eat. As the dragon blood rice entered her stomach, she could feel a scorching sensation circulating in her lower abdomen. Her dantian seemed to have turned into a furnace. Surging spirit energy and majestic essence energy gushed out and covered her entire body in an instant. At this moment, her heavily injured body also regained its strength. Circulating her cultivation technique, she naturally converted the spirit energy into true energy to nourish her body and meridians. The essence energy converged at her wounds, constantly mending them. Her originally serious injuries were actually healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Wu Yunbai was amazed and amazed. She did not expect that this bowl of dragon blood donburi would actually have the effect of healing her injuries. It was simply godly. Chapter 217. The bowl of donburi was quickly devoured by Wu Yunbai. Not even a single grain of rice was left on the flat, round bowl. After Wu Yunbai finished eating, her originally pale face became rosy, as if there was a rich essence circulating on it. With a burp, spiritual energy dispersed from her body. Feeling as if there were flames burning in her dantian, Wu Yunbai's face gradually revealed a hint of joy. Onerbu was indeed Onerbu. With the help of a bowl of dragon blood meat donburi, her injuries had greatly improved. Even though she had not fully recovered, she was much better than before. Onerbu, this beef seems a little strange. Why does it contain such a rich spiritual energy? The rice is also very special. It's chewy in the mouth, but after swallowing it, it's like eating a great tonic, overflowing with spiritual energy. Wu Yunbai clicked her tongue in wonder. After hearing Wu Yunbai's evaluation, the corner of Bufang's mouth slightly twitched. This was dragon blood rice. Although it was just an ordinary dragon blood rice watered with the blood of a flood dragon, it was definitely much better than ordinary rice. Even some spirit rice could not compare. Not only was dragon blood rice a delicious ingredient, but it was also a medicinal ingredient. As for the beef, there was no need to mention it. The beef of the 7th rank wandering dragon cow was definitely filled with spiritual energy. Bufang had already tested its taste, and it was excellent. When these two ingredients were mixed together, the dish would naturally be unparalleled in deliciousness. At this moment, Wu Yunbai's body contained a surge of spirit energy and essence energy. She needed to find a place to cultivate and digest all of this energy. Only then could her injuries recover a little. Therefore, both Master Ah Wu and Wu Yunbai bid farewell to Bufang. Before she left, Wu Yunbai glanced at Anai with a profound look in her eyes and said, "I hope you won't forget what you promised me." Anai nodded and bowed respectfully to Wu Yunbai, expressing his gratitude for her help. Wu Yunbai did not say anything. She left Bufang's store with Master Ah Wu. "Owner Bu, is it time to start treating my uncle Yu Feng?" Anai asked anxiously. Yu Fu was also looking at Bufang with excitement and anticipation. However, Bufang merely glanced at the three of them indifferently and said, "Don't be in such a hurry. I said that I would cook an elixir cuisine to save him after business hours. Naturally, I won't go back on my word. Just wait patiently, don't rush me." Bufang was incomparably calm. After saying that, he returned to the kitchen. Ouyang Xiaoyi blinked her eyes and moved closer to the 5 stripes path understanding tree. She found a comfortable spot and sat down. Although she was not cultivating, the aroma of the path understanding tree was beneficial to her cultivation. The opening hours of the day passed quickly. During this time, some acquaintances came to the store and left after eating. They also took the opportunity to observe the growth of the 5 stripes path understanding tree. When 2 blurry crescent moons appeared in the darkened sky, Bufang had ended its business hours for the day. He walked out of the kitchen, wiped off the water stains on his hands, and came to the small spot. He pulled out a chair and sat down. He looked at Serpent Man Yu Fu and the other 2 calmly. He had gone to the illusory spirit swamp to retrieve the seeds of the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus. The Ice Soul Monarch Lotus was originally a heavenly treasure belonging to the Serpent Men tribe. Since Bufang had taken it, he naturally had to show some appreciation. This was also the reason why he had helped to save the Serpent Man Yu Feng. In fact, this could be considered a kind of equivalent exchange. Back then, due to the harsh conditions, the wandering dragon beef porridge that Bufang brewed could only alleviate the injuries of the Serpent Man Yu Feng. Now that they had come to the Imperial City, and Bufang had promised to brew elixir cuisine to save him, he would naturally do his best. He sat down on the chair unhurriedly and conversed with the Serpent Man, Anai. After cooking for a day, Bufang also wanted to relax. However, Anai and Yu Fu were incomparably anxious. They couldn't wait for Bufang to start cooking the elixir cuisine immediately. Finally, Bufang, who had rested enough, stood up. Under the hopeful gazes of Anai and Yu Fu, he walked into the kitchen to prepare the elixir cuisine. Last time in the Serpent Men tribe, he had used the most primitive kitchen utensils to brew the wandering dragon beef porridge. The effects were extremely poor, and the healing effects were less than 10%. Now that he had the kitchen equipment of the store, he could naturally brew the real elixir cuisine. Blood Crown wandering dragon beef porridge? I need to make some changes. Bufang stood in front of the kitchen counter, narrowing his eyes as he pondered. First, he took out the huge blood crown he had cut off from the head of the 7th-grade black swamp boa from the system's dimensional storage. The blood crown was the essence of the black swamp boa, and it was the main ingredient of this elixir cuisine. If I use dragon blood rice and the blood crown, the effects of this elixir cuisine should be even better. Bufang rubbed his chin and pondered. The more he thought about it, the more his eyes lit up. He felt that this improvement should be even better. Green smoke curled up from his hand, and the golden dragon bone kitchen knife appeared. With a flick of the knife, he cut off a piece of the huge blood crown. The golden dragon bone kitchen knife was necessary to cut off the blood crown. If an ordinary kitchen knife was used to cut off the blood crown, it would not be able to seal the opening of the blood crown, and the spirit energy would leak out rapidly. When that happened, the blood crown would become useless. The advantage of the golden dragon bone kitchen knife was that after cutting off ingredients with spirit energy, it would ensure that the spirit energy of the ingredients would not leak out and would be sealed within the ingredient. This was extremely important when cooking elixir cuisine. Bufang took out some dragon blood rice. It was not a lot, just less than half of the rice used to make the meat vegetable rice. He took out a clay pot from the cupboard, washed the dragon blood rice, and poured in a lot of alpine spirit spring water provided by the system. The diced blood crown was also thrown into the clay pot. Bufang took out the wandering dragon beef. This time, he took the thigh meat of the wandering dragon cow. Under the cutting of the golden dragon bone kitchen knife, the spirit energy was perfectly preserved. After putting all the ingredients into the clay pot, Bufang turned on the stove and started to slowly cook it. He covered the lid of the clay pot with one hand, and true energy slowly flowed out from his arm and into the clay pot. Elixir Cuisine tested the chef's control of true energy, as well as his familiarity with the mixing effects of each ingredient in the dish. Thus, cooking Elixir Cuisine was an extremely difficult and exhausting task for many chefs. Even for Bufang, if he wanted to cook an Elixir Cuisine, he would have to expend a lot of energy and true energy. This was especially true for the blood crown beef dragon rice congee this time. Because the ingredients used were not ordinary, the reaction of spirit energy between the ingredients was more complicated and detailed. The chef's control of true energy was higher, and the difficulty was higher. For almost an hour, Bufang maintained the output of true energy. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his brows were tightly furrowed. He did not dare to slack off in the slightest. Bufang was very serious about his culinary skills. He hoped to cook every dish to the best. Thus, every time he cooked a dish, he would put his heart and soul into it. He did his best so that his dish would not be a disgrace to his skills. The rich aroma of porridge slowly floated out. This aroma was very thin, like a very thin thread. It entered one's nostrils and was as smooth as a thread. This is the fragrance. Although it is a little different from the last time, this is the same smell. I remember it very clearly. Yu Fu smelled the fragrance wafting out from the kitchen, and she instantly became excited. She pinched Ani's arm and said continuously. Ani nodded his head with a bitter smile. However, at the same time, his heart was also very excited. That fragrance was brewing, and when it reached a deep level, it burst forth, intoxicating people. When a thin figure appeared in the shadow of Bufang's kitchen, Ani and Yu Fu could not help but straighten their bodies. Bufang carried a clay pot and the pot was steaming. The steam was accompanied by a silky fragrance. Gulp, gulp. He placed the clay pot on the table. The blood-colored rice porridge was still boiling, and every time a bubble popped, a fragrance would emerge. Blood crown beef dragon rice porridge. This time, it should be enough to cure your father. You can feed it to him. Bufang rubbed his slightly stiff fingers and said to Yu Fu. Yu Fu nodded her head excitedly. She walked in front of the clay pot, and looked at the boiling rice porridge in the pot. She bit her lips. She took a small celadone bowl, and scooped a spoonful of steaming rice porridge from the clay pot. The spirit energy on the rice porridge seemed to be manifesting, and it was as if there was a long and narrow snake roaring. This. Yu Fu was almost incoherent. Spirit energy turning into a strange phenomenon was simply terrifying. If nothing goes wrong, this elixir cuisine should be able to cure him. Bufang nodded his head lightly. He looked at the excited Yu Fu seriously, and his gaze softened a little. Chapter 218. Yu Fu scooped a bowl of piping hot dragon blood rice porridge. The surging essence energy gathered and rolled around the mouth of the celadone bowl. Using a porcelain spoon to scoop a spoonful, Yu Fu carefully blew on it. The dragon-like essence energy was blown away and dispersed, bringing with it a rich fragrance. This dragon blood rice porridge was not a sweet porridge. Due to the addition of some wandering dragon beef, it had a slightly salty taste. The essence energy that blew over also carried a faint salty aroma. The slightly blood-red porridge was fed into the mouth of the unconscious snake man Yu Feng. After 2 small bowls, his complexion began to visibly change. From its initial pale and bloodless appearance, to a slightly rosy complexion. The effect this time was even more prominent than the last. After the serpent man Yu Feng ate his 3rd bowl, he suddenly opened his eyes. Essence energy seemed to be circulating in his pupils. A surging wave of energy was released from his body, blowing away Yu Fu, who was about to feed him another mouthful. Buzz! The wave of energy surged like a ripple. Yu Feng's entire face turned a bewitching shade of red, as if blood was about to drip out. A mouthful of murky black gas was spat out from his mouth and diffused into the air, bringing with it a slightly pungent smell. Bufang frowned and covered his nose with his hand. His sense of taste was more sensitive than ordinary people, so it was natural that he would have a strong reaction to the stench. The last time he ate Bufang's elixir cuisine, Yu Feng did not have such a strong reaction. This time, his reaction was a little unexpected. However, Bufang did not panic at all, because this kind of reaction was normal. This bowl of dragon blood rice porridge was mixed with so many ingredients full of essence energy. Just the blood crown of the black swamp boa alone was enough to wake Yu Feng up. With the addition of the essence replenishing dragon blood rice, the two complementing each other, the effect was obvious. Yu Feng's aura fluctuated for a while before it settled down. His jet-black hair slapped against his face. Murky sweat continuously streaked across his cheeks, along his chin, and dripped onto the ground. These were the impurities in his body. After the essence energy was replenished, his metabolism was restored. This meant that the serpent man Yu Feng had completely recovered. Father! Yu Fu was so excited that she wanted to cry. In order to recover, she had gone through untold hardships and almost died. Now that Yu Feng had recovered, there was nothing in the world that could make her happier. Yu Feng's eyes were deep. He withdrew his aura and looked at Yu Fu lovingly. He nodded at Anai, who was standing beside him, and finally, his gaze fell on Bufang. With a swing of his serpent tail, he appeared in front of Bufang and thanked Bufang. Many thanks for Owner Bu's elixir cuisine. I, Yu Feng, will never forget your great kindness. Bufang narrowed his eyes and looked at the serpent man in front of him, who had recovered after eating his elixir cuisine. His heart was filled with joy. He nodded and gladly accepted the serpent man's gratitude. There is still a bowl of dragon blood porridge over there. Drink it and your injuries will be healed, Bufang said. The serpent man Yu Feng nodded. After thanking Bufang once again, he scooped up the last bowl of porridge from the clay pot and slowly ate it. Even though the boiling hot porridge was filled with essence energy, it was still a rare delicacy. The serpent man felt extremely comfortable as he ate it. He felt as if he was about to swallow his own tongue. Owner Bu's culinary skills are simply astonishing. Once again, I thank Owner Bu for his treatment. I wonder what we can do to repay Owner Bu's kindness. The serpent man Yu Feng looked earnestly at Bufang. However, Bufang waved his hand and said, "There is no need for you to do anything. I received the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus from you as a promise to the Great Elder to save you. This is an equivalent exchange, don't take it to heart." Even though that was what Bufang said, Serpent Man Yu Feng was well aware that Bufang's kindness of saving them was not something that could be repaid with a mere Ice Soul Monarch Lotus. Even though the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus was precious, Yu Feng knew that this bowl of elixir cuisine contained at least 2 ingredients that were not inferior to the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus. If Owner Bu doesn't mind, let me be Owner Bu's guard. It is not easy for Owner Bu to manage such a large imperial city. Even though I don't have any other abilities, my cultivation is still passable. Yu Feng thought for a moment and spoke to Bu Feng. As a 7th grade battle saint of the Serpentmen tribe, being the guard of a chef should be enough to repay his kindness. However, when faced with Yu Feng's request, Serpentman Yu Fu and Ni's expressions became a little strange. Bu Feng was taken aback for a moment and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Forget it. Being a guard, is Owner Bu looking down on me? Even though my cultivation is not considered the best in the Grand Serpentine City, it is still not a problem for me to roam the Light Wind Empire's imperial city. Serpentman Yu Feng said confidently. At the side, Yu Fu and I couldn't help but give him meaningful looks. Where was this? It was Owner Bu's store. They all knew that the current terrifying situation in the imperial city was all because of this unremarkable store that was opened in a corner. Many battle saints were spying on them and many experts couldn't help but make a move. But what was the result? The store was still operating well. The store's security capabilities were really not lacking in Serpentman Yu Feng. Our store's security capabilities are sufficient, there is no need to trouble you. Since you have already recovered, I have fulfilled my promise. As of now, the store's business hours have already ended and it is about to close. Everyone take care. I won't be seeing you out. Bu Feng couldn't be bothered to say anything to Yu Feng and said expressionlessly. The store had Xiao Bai inside and the plump dog outside. Oh Lord Go, these two could easily deal with a 7th grade battle saint. Alright, even though Owner Bu doesn't need my guard, I won't force you. However, I will be staying in the Imperial City for a year. If the store encounters any trouble, I will do my best to help you. If you have any requests, you can call me anytime, Yu Feng said. After saying that, he didn't wait for Bu Feng's reply and left Bu Feng's store with Yu Fu and I. Bu Feng helplessly looked at the backs of the 3 serpent men as they left, a strange expression on his face. This serpent man, why is he so stubborn? Could it be that I was too tactful? Sigh, if I had known earlier, I would have said it clearly. A mere 7th grade battle saint isn't good enough to be the store's guard. The corners of Bu Feng's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but feel amused in his heart. He closed the door, cleaned up the porcelain bowls and clay pot, and returned to the kitchen to practice cooking a few dishes. After that, he returned to his room to rest and maintain his sleep. The fragrance emitted by the 5 Stripes Path Understanding tree in the store was getting stronger and stronger. The sapling was growing stronger and stronger. Yu Fu, who injured you so badly? Yu Feng walked out of the alleyway, swaying slightly on the streets of the Imperial City. His face darkened as he looked at the wounds all over Yu Fu and Ni's bodies. He had wanted to ask back in the store, but he held back because Owner Bu was around. However, he couldn't hold it in anymore. His daughter was actually covered in wounds. It was obvious that many things had happened while he was unconscious. I was a little excited. Yu Feng's recovery was like a pillar of support for them. In this imperial city where battle saints ran amok, they finally had a guarantee. I told Yu Feng everything that happened after they arrived, including how they were held hostage by Zhao Mushing, how they had to endure cruel punishments, and so on. He also told him about the promise he made to Wu Yunbai in order to save Yu Feng and Yu Fu. How dare you, old dog! You actually dared to hurt my daughter, you're courting death. After listening to I, Yu Feng's eyes suddenly flashed with an ominous glint. With a flash of light in his hand, a jet-black spear appeared. Suddenly, a thick stench of blood emanated from the spear. Take me to that old dog. I will stab him to death with my spear. Yu Feng was furious. However, I was well aware of how terrifying Zhao Mushing's mansion was. Even Wu Yunbai and Master Ah Wu, two battle saints, were almost killed when they barged in. No matter how strong Yu Feng was, if he were to rush in recklessly, he could still meet with misfortune. Therefore, he and Yu Fu persuaded the bellowing Yu Feng to go find Wu Yunbai first. After calming down, Yu Feng also knew that he couldn't do anything, so he nodded in agreement. However, in his heart, he had already included Zhao Mushing in his kill list. Right on I, buy a house near Ownerbu's store some other day. We'll be staying here for a year. Since we promised to protect Ownerbu's store for a year, we must keep our word, Yu Feng said to Anai as he took out a few pieces of crystals and gave them to him. Anai, that's right. Anai received the crystals in a daze, completely dumbfounded. Chapter 219. Outside the majestic gates of the imperial city, tender green grass sprouted from both sides of the road. After being covered by the icy snow for an entire winter, the moist soil finally showed signs of recovery. The vigorous breath of life lingered around the land. Outside the imperial city, on the wide official road, the crisp sound of footsteps rang out. From afar, a thin figure slowly approached from the horizon. It was an old man, riding a gray donkey. The old man was dressed in a long robe and his hair was disheveled. He held a huge wine gourd in his hand as he swaggered towards the imperial city. From time to time, the old man would open the lid of the gourd and happily take a sip of wine. Drinking wine and humming a tune, the old man had a contented look on his face. Under the majestic walls of the imperial city, in front of the city gate, 3 figures stood. The slightly icy wind whistled past, blowing the clothes wrapped around their bodies. Master, the senior has arrived. Tang Yin's eyes lit up when he saw the old man riding a donkey. He couldn't help but say this to An Yin, who was standing beside him. An Yin nodded, but her mouth twitched. This old drunkard was so long-winded. He actually chose to ride a donkey from Wuliang Mountain. Could he be any funnier? Is this the senior who that master often mentions? Yi Xiling carried the longbow on her back. Her eyes widened as she looked curiously at the old man riding a donkey. If your master is talking about an old drunkard, then it's him. An Yin patted Yi Xiling's head and laughed. The crisp sound of the donkey's hooves colliding with the ground was full of rhythm. The 3 of them felt their hearts skip a beat. The old man riding a donkey, who was originally far away, had actually arrived in front of them in the next moment. An Yin was shocked. That was clearly a donkey. Why was it still walking so fast? You little girl, my old bones can't take the torment. If you don't get the 5 stripes path understanding fruit this time, then this old man's wine. You better not touch it in the future. The old drunkard rode on the donkey, took a sip of wine and smacked his lips. An Yin immediately snorted and turned her head away. With Ownerbu's frost blaze path understanding brew, who would covet your dragon's breath? The old drunkard dismounted from the donkey and hung the wine gourd at his waist. He straightened his pants and gave Tang Yin and Yi Xiling a mischievous smile before leading the donkey toward the imperial city. This girl is that old witch's disciple? TSK, you're really pretty. The old drunkard sized up Yi Xiling and laughed. Yi Xiling immediately looked at the old drunkard with vigilance. Just as the 4 of them were chatting and laughing as they prepared to enter the imperial capital, a melodious beast's roar suddenly rang out in the distance. An Yin and the others subconsciously turned their heads to look. The old drunkard was pouring wine into his mouth as he turned his head. In the distance, a huge black dragon spread its wings and whistled as a majestic draconic might was released from its body. Oh, a 7th-grade spirit beast, the black dungeon dragon? The old drunkard chuckled. An Yin and the others felt some pressure when facing the black dungeon dragon. Suddenly, their eyes narrowed as they saw a figure standing on the black dungeon dragon's back. It was an old man with a hunched back, his aura as steady as a mountain. This is an expert from the godly temple of the Wildlands? An Yin murmured. An 8th grade expert from the godly temple of the wildlands had finally appeared. In a small courtyard in the imperial capital, the ghost chef Wang Ding held a kitchen knife and was elegantly dissecting a 5th grade spirit beast in front of him. His hands were very nimble, and the kitchen knife seemed to be dancing on his palms as he incessantly cut up the spirit beast. Spirit beast meat was constantly being cut off. In just a short while, a complete spirit beast had been skillfully cut up until only its white skeleton was left. Putting away the kitchen knife, the ghost chef Wang Ding wiped his hands clean. Clasping his hands behind his back, he staggered back to the small courtyard house and sat on the rocking chair, slowly rocking it. In front of the rocking chair was a huge black wok. White steam billowed out from the wok, and a strange smell wafted out from it. After sitting on the rocking chair for a while, the ghost chef Wang Ding stood up and carried in a large bucket from outside. The bucket was actually filled with the meat of the spirit beast that he had dissected earlier. He opened the lid of the big black wok, and hot steam surged out, shooting straight into the sky. Wang Ding's gaze was deep as he looked at the boiling wok. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he poured all the meat in the bucket into the wok. Rumble! The meat in the wok began to tumble at high speed. The ghost chef trembled as he took out a small jar from his bosom. Removing the lid, he used 2 withered fingers to pinch out a dark purple pill. Chuckling, he crushed the pill with his withered fingers and sprinkled the powder into the wok. The ghost chef once again covered the wok. 35 5th grade spirit beasts. Boil the meat of 2 more spirit beasts, and I will be able to brew the essence of the meat soup. When that time comes, the fight for the path understanding tree should begin. The ghost chef shakily returned to the rocking chair and lay down comfortably. A furry blanket covered his legs as he rocked back and forth on the rocking chair. Over the past few days, the store had become more and more lively. Many battle saints could no longer sit still, and had come to Bufang's store in order to observe the growth progress of the 5 stripes path understanding tree. Ever since they came to Fong Fong's little store and tasted the dishes once, they were completely subdued and came every day. Being able to taste the delicacies while observing the 5 stripes path understanding tree and feel the path understanding notes emitted by the 5 stripes path understanding tree was not bad at all. The leaves of the 5 stripes path understanding tree growing on top of a khaki-colored flower pot in the corner had turned a deep green. The patterns on its surface were incomparably complex, and the 5 patterns were like little snakes coiling around each other. Among the leaves, 3 spirit fruits the size of an infant's fist hung heavily. They had a faint blue tint to them, and 4 cloud patterns appeared on the fruits. Everyone was well aware that when the 5th cloud pattern was born, it meant that the fruit had completely ripened. However, there were only 4 cloud patterns, and it was still a little short. Xiaoyi, serve the dishes. Bufang's indifferent voice rang out from the kitchen. A steaming hot fish head tofu soup was placed by Bufang on the window. Ouyang Xiaoyi carried the dish with ease, and arrived in front of a man dressed in a red robe. Your fish head tofu soup, please enjoy, Ouyang Xiaoyi said charmingly, glancing at the gentle and handsome man dressed in a red robe. For the past few days, this man would come almost every day, and he would order a different dish every day. Every time, he would leave after eating, unlike the other battle saints who would linger in the store for a long time. Many thanks. The man in the red robe smiled warmly at Ouyang Xiaoyi, and then began to concentrate on the fish head tofu soup in front of him. Mu Lingfeng had already been completely conquered by the store's delicacies. A few days ago, when he tasted the store's delicacies for the first time, he was already taken aback. The deliciousness made all the pores on his body open up, and he could not help but feel refreshed and delighted. Not only him, but many of the battle saints around him were also used to coming to Owner Bu's store for a while every day. What a pity! When the 5 stripes path understanding tree matures, this store will become a battlefield, and it will be hard for it to survive. When that time comes, I wonder if I'll have the chance to taste such delicacies again. Mu Lingfeng sighed. Mu Lingfeng drank a few mouthfuls of the fresh and thick fish soup. Suddenly, his mind moved, and a jade talisman appeared in his hand. There seemed to be a message coming from it. Elder Bien has arrived so soon? Mu Lingfeng was a little surprised. While scooping up the fish soup with a blue and white porcelain spoon, he received the message from the jade talisman. Pfft! All of a sudden, Mu Lingfeng couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of fish soup. His eyes widened as he received the message from the jade talisman. His face was filled with an odd expression, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xing Mu, that idiot! He actually invited Elder Xia here as well? And he even brought Elder Xia to the store. What is he trying to do? Already thinking of making a move? Mu Lingfeng's face revealed a speechless expression. The truth was, the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands were not that harmonious. Each of the 3 temples had their own internal strife. Mu Lingfeng belonged to the Imperial Beast Hall, and Elder Bien was also an expert of the Imperial Beast Hall. Xing Mu, on the other hand, belonged to the Ferocious Temple, a temple where everyone was simple-minded and all brawn. That Elder Xia was an elder of the Ferocious Temple, and he was famous for being a brainless destroyer. Now, the 5 stripes path understanding fruit was only 1 stripe away from ripening, and this group of people had already rushed here. Wasn't this a bad thing? Chapter 220. Imperial City, Imperial Palace, Main Hall. The resplendent main hall was deserted. Everyone, including the eunuchs and palace maids, had been chased out by Ji Qingshu. He reclined on the dragon throne alone, his eyes slightly closed. He was not sleeping, but contemplating. The situation in the imperial city had gradually spiraled out of his control. Even though he was the emperor, he still felt powerless. Xiao Meng sent a secret report. From the report, he learned a lot of information. The current imperial city was no longer the imperial city under his control. Even 8th-grade war gods had appeared. They were existences that were several times more powerful than the Empire's top forces. They were not existences that the Light Wind Empire could contend against. In the past, there were only 7th-grade battle saint. With Xiao Meng, who was at the peak of 7th-grade battle saint, he could still intimidate the crowd. But in front of 8th-grade war gods, it was still not enough. These unheard-of 8th-grade war gods had appeared in the Imperial City for the 5 Stripes Path Understanding Tree. And this Path Understanding Tree was in Ownerbu's store, so it was Ownerbu's store that would suffer. Rubbing his brows, Ji Qingshu opened his eyes and lightly exhaled. Forget it, I can't think of any good ideas even if I stay here and worry about it. From now on, we can only rely on Ownerbu himself. Maybe Ownerbu has a trump card. After all, there is a suspected supreme beast guarding the store. Maybe these 8th-grade war gods won't be able to destroy it so easily. Wu Yunbai looked at the man in casual clothes and half a silver mask standing in front of her. She timidly took a step back. Big brother Zhang Kong, why are you here? Wu Yunbai asked awkwardly. The masked man seemed to carry a sense of unfamiliarity. He glanced at the floor where Wu Yunbai lived and frowned. Ah Wu said you were seriously injured. Looking at you, it doesn't look like it? His voice was pleasant to the ear, but it was stiff and cold. Commander Zhang Kong, the young lady was indeed seriously injured a few days ago. But with the help of an expert, she has recovered. Master Ah Wu hurriedly said respectfully. This ice-cold man in front of him was not a simple person. He was one of the 4 great commanders of the White Cloud Villa. His cultivation level had reached the 8th-grade war god realm, and his battle prowess was terrifying. He once tore apart a 7th-grade spirit beast with his bare hands and drenched his entire body in its blood. Who hurt you? Zhang Kong's eyes turned and landed on Wu Yunbai as he asked calmly. It's none of your business. I will avenge myself, Wu Yunbai said stubbornly. Zhang Kong calmly looked at Wu Yunbai, then suddenly walked into the house and reached out his hand to pat Wu Yunbai's head. "Ah Wu, come in with me. Tell me who hurt young Miss, and who saved young Mississippi, hey." Ah Wu was taken aback and hurriedly followed. Wu Yunbai puffed up her cheeks. Looking at the back of the tall and straight man, she secretly snorted and stomped her feet as she followed him in. Mahayana Island Buddhist sect? Zhang Kong glanced at Ah Wu in confusion. Why would such a weak faction dare to provoke the people of the White Cloud Villa? However, he did not ask too much. He only needed to know who hurt Wu Yunbai. Then who saved young Miss? It's the owner of a small store. It's the one that has been the talk of the Imperial City recently, the one that owns the Five Stripes Path Understanding Tree, Ah Wu said respectfully. Oh? That small store? On my way here, I met the old man from the godly temple of the Wildland. Their target seems to be the small store. If I'm not wrong, it should be the same as the small store you mentioned, Zhang Kong said. Wu Yunbai's expression changed. The old man from the godly temple of the Wildlands? An old man that could attract the attention of the arrogant Zhang Kong must be an 8th grade war god. Could it be that the godly temple of the Wildlands had already started to make a move on the small store? Had they finally lost their patience? Zhang Kong, say no more. I know what you want to say. However, I have my own plans. You should rest first. The waters in the Imperial City of the Light Wind Empire are a bit muddy now. My purpose of coming here is to bring you back safely and give the Villa Master an explanation. So, you better stay put. Zhang Kong interrupted Wu Yunbai, who was about to speak. He stood up, clasped his hands behind his back, and walked out of the room. Wu Yunbai was furious. This arrogant man. Ah Wu, keep an eye on the young miss. Before I return, don't let her leave the room, Zhang Kong said as he glanced at Master Ah Wu. Master Ah Wu's heart skipped a beat. His body shivered and he hurriedly nodded. Then, Zhang Kong paid no more attention to him and left the inn. Standing on the long street of the Imperial City, surrounded by pedestrians, Zhang Kong's eyes were indifferent. He took a step forward, and the people and objects around him instantly disappeared. In the next moment, he stopped in front of a luxurious courtyard. As he looked at the courtyard, his eyes gradually became indifferent. A mere Mahayana island, a trashy force that doesn't even have an 8th grade warrior, dares to hurt the young master of the White Cloud Villa. How reckless! Zhang Kong slightly closed his eyes under the silver mask. The corners of his eyes twitched and he curled his lips. He didn't seem to make any movements, but Zhang Kong simply raised his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. Suddenly, a surge of spirit energy gathered in his palm. In the air, a gigantic palm made of spirit energy appeared. The palm was huge and exquisite, and the patterns on it were clearly visible. A terrifying aura spread out from the palm. Zhang Kong tilted his head and looked at the palm of spirit energy hovering above the luxurious courtyard. He slightly pressed down, and suddenly the wind and clouds surged. The houses in the luxurious courtyard trembled violently, unable to withstand the pressure. Inside the courtyard, Zhao Mushing, who was sitting cross-legged in a secret chamber, suddenly opened his eyes. A trace of fear flashed across his eyes. I wonder which warrior has arrived. Zhao Mushing, please forgive me for not coming out to greet you. With a long howl, Zhao Mushing released a terrifying aura from his body and rushed out of the courtyard. He hovered in the air above the courtyard. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his head and saw the gigantic palm above his head. His pupils constricted and his heart trembled. Zhao Mushing? It's good that you've come out. Since you dared to injure someone from my White Cloud Villa, then die. Zhang Kong indifferently looked at Zhao Mushing, who was floating in the air. The corners of his mouth slightly curled up, and he didn't waste any more words. He raised his palm and gently swung it down. Boom! With an earth-shattering sound, Zhao Mushing felt a terrifying pressure abruptly descend upon his body. The bones in his entire body emitted crackling sounds of compression. Damn it! Zhao Mushing's eyes were filled with endless fear. This kind of pressure was unparalleled. The person in front of him was actually an 8th-grade war god. The palm of spirit energy suddenly came crashing down, causing the entire ground to tremble. Zhao Mushing was directly smashed into the ground, and the entire luxurious courtyard was instantly turned into ruins. If someone were to look down from the sky, they would see that the entire courtyard's ground had caved in and transformed into a gigantic palm. A huge tremor spread out, shaking the entire imperial city. This loud sound attracted the attention of many people in the imperial city. Xiaomeng, who was in the Xiao mansion, rushed out with a palpitating heart. Feeling the terrifying pressure, he took a deep breath. An 8th-grade war god made his move. Rumble! Rubble flew everywhere. Zhao Mushing, who was covered in blood, burst out from the rubble. He coldly glared at Zhang Kong. Then, without saying a word, Zhao Mushing turned around and stepped into the air to leave. However, Zhang Kong's eyes under the mask turned cold. His plain clothes fluttered, and a pair of magnificent wings formed by the condensation of clouds suddenly appeared on his back. In an instant, he appeared beside Zhao Mushing. "Did I say you could leave?" Zhang Kong indifferently said. "Don't go too far." Zhao Mushing angrily roared. He never expected that an 8th-grade war god would attack him. He wasn't prepared at all and was almost killed. "So what if I am? Do you think you're in the right after injuring my men?" Zhang Kong indifferently said. His figure turned around, and with a swing of his leg, he ruthlessly smashed it into Zhao Mushing's body. The terrifying force almost tore the air apart. Zhao Mushing violently spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body aged in an instant. He staggered in the air and stood still. He wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, and a hideous expression emerged on his face. He crushed a blood-colored jade pendant, and instantly, the phantom of a giant golden Buddha appeared around him. The giant Buddha's palm fiercely swatted at Zhang Kong. In the process of swatting, the giant golden Buddha turned blood-red, and became a hideous blood Buddha. Zhang Kong took a deep breath, and his figure leaped up. He rotated 360 degrees, and directly tore the blood Buddha into pieces. The giant blood Buddha turned into a sky full of bloody light and dissipated. Very good. I thought I would have to fight to the death, but in the end, he used a feint and escape. As expected, the older he gets, the more shrewd he becomes. But forget it. It's just a branch of the Buddhist sect, nothing to worry about. The wings behind Zhang Kong's back disappeared, and he safely landed on the ground. He tidied up his clothes and calmly murmured. He turned around and left with his hands clasped behind his back. Behind him was a courtyard of ruins. On the long street of the imperial city, several overbearing men wearing leather jackets were rampaging about. The leader was a man whose muscles bulged like a small hill. His aura was steady and majestic, and as he moved, it was like a rumble. Suddenly, his ears twitched, and he looked at the sudden plume of smoke in the distance, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Someone actually made a move before me, Xiada. Very well, looks like I can't be left behind. Xingmu kiddo, the store is over there. Hurry up. I can't wait to make my move. Xiada sneered, and the muscles on his face scrunched up, making him look hideous. Xingmu, riding on his cheetah, also laughed. He pointed at the entrance of the alley in front of him and said, "Elder Xia, the store is on the left in front. I was originally working with that idiot Zhao Mushing. That idiot said he could easily obtain the 5 stripes path understanding tree, and King believed him. In the end, after working for half a day, I didn't even get a fart. That's why I called you here, Elder." "Haha. You idiot, since you're here to fight, why are you beating around the bush? Just kill your way over there." This time, I, the elder, will teach you the meaning of aggressiveness. As a member of the ferocious temple, don't be timid when you walk the earth. You must fight. Don't be a coward, just fight. Chapter 221. Bufang walked out of the kitchen, stretched, wiped away the water stains on his hands, and pulled out a chair to sit down for a break. After spending the entire morning in the kitchen, he had finally finished cooking all the dishes ordered by the customers. Finally, he could take a break and rest. Mu Lingfeng sat in the distance, sipping his fish soup while observing Bufang as he walked out of the kitchen. Having been in the store for so many days, the impression that owner Bu gave him was that he was the kind of person who would not panic even if a mountain were to collapse in front of him. However, Bufang's culinary skills were indeed superb. At least among the delicacies he had tasted before, it was the best. If the store did not have the 5 stripes path understanding tree, Mu Lingfeng would have liked to come here for some appetizers and a little wine. What a pity! An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Sitting on a treasure like the 5 stripes path understanding tree had doomed this store to a tragic end. He knew that in a short while this store would be destroyed. Xing Mu, that guy, brought Elder Xia to the store. What a pity! Mu Lingfeng took a sip of Iceheart Jade Urn wine and sighed. On the long streets of the imperial city, a group of strong men walked straight and finally arrived at a secluded alley. Is this the place? Elder Xia glanced at Xing Mu, the muscles on his face twitching slightly as he asked. Yes, the store is in this inconspicuous alley. Xing Mu patted the head of the black cheetah he was riding on and said with a chuckle. Elder Xia frowned, the corners of his mouth curling slightly. What a remote place! How could a 5 stripes path understanding tree appear in such a secluded alley? However, he did not say too much and led the group into the alleyway. Regardless of whether this store was located in a remote area or not, their target was only the 5 stripes path understanding tree. As for the store, that was not what they were concerned about. If it was too annoying, they could just casually destroy it. Standing at the entrance of the store, Elder Xia cracked his neck, the muscles on his body bulging like dragons. Xing Mu narrowed his eyes, dismounted from the back of the cheetah, and turned to Elder Xia. Elder Xia, should we go in or, let's go. Let's see how the 5 stripes path understanding tree looks like. Is it really like what you said? To be honest, I still don't believe what you said. How could a treasure like the 5 stripes path understanding tree appear in such a remote place? Xiada pursed his lips. Xing Mu was stunned and didn't know what to say. But soon, he grinned and led his people into the store. The moment they stepped into the store, the warm atmosphere inside caused their expressions to slightly change. As 7th grade battle saints, they were extremely sensitive to spirit energy. The air was filled with the rich aroma of the dishes and spirit energy that could make one feel hungry. It was simply unbelievable. The environment inside and outside the shop were completely different. The path understanding tree's path understanding notes echoed from time to time, making people feel enlightened. There really is a 5 stripes path understanding tree. Xing Mu's eyes lit up as he looked at Elder Xia, who had also stepped into the store. The latter's expression also became strange. Let's eat and order. Look at the menu behind you. Let me know what you want to eat. Seeing several burly men step into the store, Ouyang Xiaoi frowned slightly. The store was not big to begin with. Once these people came in, it became a little crowded. Eat? Haha. Little girl, I'm not here to eat today, I'm here to ask for treasures. Xing Mu laughed. Ouyang Xiaoi was taken aback, a little confused. Sitting on a chair, Bufang frowned and glanced at this burly man. Call the owner of the store out. If he still wants to keep this store open in this remote corner, then tell him to stop wasting time. Xing Mu was incomparably domineering. Bufang stood up, shielded Ouyang Xiaoi behind him, and walked in front of this group of people. I am the owner of the store. Is there anything I can help you with? In the distance, Mu Lingfeng shook his head. As expected, this group of simple-minded, brawny experts from the ferocious hall had come. But he did not move. He was still sitting in his original position, drinking the delicious fish soup. Something? Of course there is. Didn't you hear what I said earlier? I'm here to ask for treasures? Don't play dumb with me. Where's the 5 stripes path understanding tree? Hand it over. Xing Mu clenched his fist. The muscles on his face quivered, and he began to laugh maliciously. Bufang looked at him expressionlessly, pursed his lips, and then said, "There are many who ask for treasures from me. Who do you think you are?" Xing Mu was taken aback. Then his eyes widened, and a murderous aura surged. However, before he could make a move, Xing Mu was taken aback. He felt a sharp aura surging from outside the door, locking onto him. "Who's causing trouble in the store?" Outside the door, a cold voice rang. A figure stood outside. The crowd, including Bufang, looked toward the door in confusion. Soon, they realized that the person who was clamoring was actually a serpent man. Bufang did not know whether to laugh or cry. This serpent man Yufeng really intended to protect his store. He actually dared to come out at this time. The aura of this group of people before him was very strong. Where did he get his confidence from? "Oh, you're here to protect this store?" Xing Mu chuckled. A 7th-grade Battle Saint Serpent Man, was this store's trump card? That would really be a little boring. "Owner Bu, I promised you that I would protect the store." "I'm a man of my word," the Serpent Man Yufeng said seriously. A pitch-black spear appeared in his hand. With a sweep of the spear, it was aimed at the group of ferocious hall warriors in the store. Bufang was about to say something, but Xing Mu and the others had already walked out of the store and came to the alleyway, confronting the Serpent Man Yufeng. Bufang rolled his eyes, not knowing what to say. Even though he did not know whether to laugh or cry, he was still a little touched. A serpent man has appeared in the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire? Interesting. Among the crowd, Xia Da's lips curled into a smile. He looked at the serpent man Yufeng and laughed. The illusory spirit swamp's grand serpentine city is famous even in the hidden dragon continent. The serpentine sovereign single-handedly established a prosperous city in the harsh illusory spirit swamp, attracting the attention of countless people. I wonder if you're from the serpentine sovereign's grand serpentine city? Xiada asked calmly. The serpent man Yufeng was taken aback, then he frowned and said with a sweep of his spear, "Even though I'm not a serpent man from the Grand Serpentine City, I was fortunate enough to meet the Serpentine Sovereign." As he said this, Yufeng was quite proud. As a branch of the Serpentmen tribe, to be able to meet the legendary Serpentine Sovereign was a supreme honor. "Oh, you've met the Serpentine Sovereign? Then I'll give the Serpentine Sovereign some face. Get lost." Xiada glanced at the Serpentman Yufeng, waved his hand and sneered. Xing Mu and the others around him also burst into laughter. The Serpent Men, this was a race that they looked down upon. The Serpent Men were equivalent to the Beast Men. In the depths of the wildlands there were also Beast Men. These Beast Men lived in the depths of the wildlands and were the lowest of the low. Now, a Serpent Man was actually clamoring in front of them to protect the store. It was indeed a little ridiculous. Bufang leaned against the door frame, calmly watching the confrontation in the square. Behind him, the chubby Xiao Bai was already standing like a block of wood, his red mechanical eyes flashing. Arrogant! The serpent man Yufeng did not recognize the muscular man in front of him, but he could hear the disdain and humiliation in the man's words. This was unforgivable. Get lost? What a ridiculous arrogance! Yufeng was taken aback. With a swing of his serpentine tail, the true energy in his body gushed out, and the pitch-black spear was fiercely thrust toward the arrogant man. The air seemed to be shredded into pieces at this moment. Crashing noises resounded incessantly, and the violent waves of true energy surged up violently, causing the weather in the alleyway to change. Once a 7th grade battle saint attacked, its power was absolutely terrifying. The faces of Xing Mu and the others froze. This serpent man's cultivation level was indeed strong, no wonder he dared to stand out and clamor. Any 7th grade battle saint present would not be able to win against him. What a pity! This serpent man had no idea who was standing in front of him and what kind of existence he was. Xiada stood in place without moving. His eyes narrowed. When the powerful spear was 1 meter away from his body, Xiada slowly raised his muscular palm. Creak! An ear-piercing sound rang out. The serpent man Yu Feng's pupils constricted. The pitch-black spear he thrust out was actually caught by the human in front of him with a single hand. Bu Feng, who was leaning against the door frame, was also dumbfounded. To be able to single-handedly stop the attack of a 7th grade battle saint, the cultivation level of this big guy in front of him was obviously not simple. No wonder he dared to come to the store and clamor. So he is relying on his high-end combat prowess to join us? The corners of Bu Feng's mouth twitched as he lightly mumbled to himself. However, he was not the slightest bit worried. He patted Xiao Bai's plump belly, not the slightest bit flustered. Chapter 222. The ice-cold, pitch-black spear, which reeked of blood, was easily caught by Xiada with just one hand. Xiada simply grabbed it with his bare hands, without even using any true energy. His powerful physical strength was enough to withstand the true energy waves emitted by Serpent Man Yu Feng. Yu Feng's pupils constricted as his mind trembled. To be able to withstand his terrifying spear with just his bare hands, the human before him must have a terrifying physical body. It was even stronger than the average spirit beast. Xiada looked at the astonished expression on Serpent Man Yu Feng's face and curled his lips, revealing his pearly white gums. He laughed and said, "This spear is not bad." Then, Xiada gave a fierce tug and an unstoppable force gushed out from his hands. Yu Feng, who was still holding the spear, was directly pulled into the air and flew towards Xiada. Damn it! What kind of power is this? Yu Feng was extremely shocked. Even with his strength of a 7th grade battle saint, he could not withstand such a frightening pulling force. The long and narrow serpent tail fiercely swung in the air like a sharp longsword. It cut through the air and slashed towards Xiada with a sharp intent. The serpent man's tail was originally their strongest weapon. Some serpent men who specialized in the cultivation of the serpent's tail were much more powerful than the average divine weapon. However, Yu Feng's serpent tail was once again caught by Xiada. A huge tearing force forced Yu Feng to howl in anger. The spear fell to the ground with a clang. Xiada sneered disdainfully. His gigantic fist, which was like a millstone, directly smashed into Yu Feng's body. In an instant, the 7th grade battle saint serpent man Yu Feng was sent flying by a single punch. Fresh blood spurted from his mouth as he violently slammed into the wall of the alleyway, causing it to cave in. How reckless! I told you to get lost, yet you insisted on getting involved. Xiada clenched his fist. The sound of bones colliding could be heard, like the sound of a tree snapping. Xiada supported his gigantic body and walked step by step towards Serpent Man Yu Feng, who was struggling on the ground. A terrifying pressure surged out from his body. As soon as the pressure appeared, all the 7th grade battle saints present felt their hearts sink and tremble. This was an 8th grade war god, an invincible war god. The serpent man Yu Feng had blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. His serpentine tail was swaying back and forth, and his eyes were filled with fear as he stared at Xiada. Damn it, he's actually an 8th grade war god. He suddenly felt embarrassed. He had promised to protect the store, but the first time he made a move, he was beaten like a dead dog. I wanted to give the serpentine sovereign some face, but since you're seeking death, don't blame me. Xiada was like a towering mountain, his aura boundless and majestic. He looked down at Yu Feng, who was lying on the ground, and slowly lifted his foot. The muscles on his feet were not any weaker than the muscles on his body. If he stomped down, the Naga would definitely die. Yu Feng's pupils shrank as true energy gushed out from his body. His entire body was about to fly away. However, Xiada merely gave a cold laugh. With a stomp of his foot, Yu Feng's serpent tail was stepped on, causing the true energy within his body to scatter. Spurting out another mouthful of blood, Yu Feng fell to the ground in despair. A serpent man will always be a serpent man. A lowly race, no different from the beast men of the wildlands. Xiada smiled faintly. He raised his stone-like fist once again, aiming at the serpent man Yu Feng's head. If this punch landed, even if Yu Feng was a 7th-grade battle saint, his head would still explode. Hey, let go of the serpent man. The atmosphere of the scene was somewhat frozen. The crowd of people from the ferocious temple were watching the serpent man as if they were watching a good show. There was not the slightest bit of pity in their eyes. Anyone who dared to provoke Elder Xia should be prepared to die. However, amidst this frozen atmosphere, an indifferent voice suddenly rang out. Everyone was taken aback as they looked toward the direction where the voice came from. Xiada also stopped his fist that was about to smash down. He turned his head and looked at the slender figure leaning against the door frame. Want to save this idiot? Sure, use the 5 stripes path understanding tree in exchange. Xiada stood up and said to Bufang with a smile. Bufang did not smile, but merely looked at him indifferently. Suddenly, Xingmu, who had been motionless all this while, moved. Laughing loudly, he charged toward Bufang. Elder Xia, leave this brat to me. A mere 5th-grade battle king dares to act tough in front of me. I've been sick of him for a long time. With a long howl, Xingmu's figure suddenly appeared in front of Bufang. His eyes widened and he sneered as he raised his hand to grab at Bufang. Bufang was still calmly leaning against the door frame, and his expression didn't change. Troublemaker, you will be stripped as an example to others. Behind Bufang, Xiao Bai's mechanical voice rang out. Then, his mechanical eyes flashed with a red glow. That red glow swept across and blinded Xingmu. Bang! Xingmu's grab landed on Xiao Bai's belly, but did not leave any mark. What the hell is this? A puppet? Xingmu frowned and looked at it. The energy in his hand burst forth, wanting to pierce through the puppet with one swipe. However, no matter how much strength he exerted, Xiao Bai did not budge. Then, Xiao Bai raised his palm and slapped. Xingmu felt a surge of danger. True energy surged and covered his body. Boom! With a loud bang, Xingmu was sent flying by Xiao Bai's slap, slamming hard into the wall. The other people from the ferocious hall were shocked. Xingmu was sent flying without a chance to retaliate. How could this puppet be so strong? Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes flashed. Then, his palm suddenly extended and pulled Xingmu out of the rubble. Rip! A crisp sound rang out as the clothes on Xingmu's body were torn to shreds, revealing his bulging muscles and his sturdy body. Bang! After stripping off Xingmu's clothes, Whitey threw the naked Xingmu onto the ground. Crazy clothes stripping demon! Someone in the ferocious hall exclaimed. So this puppet was the store's guardian, the crazy clothes stripping demon. I'm going to kill you! Xingmu bellowed. He took out a set of clothes from the spatial beast Fang hanging on his neck and put them on. His eyes were filled with raging flames of fury. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes turned, and the red light fell on Xingmu's body again. The red light in his eyes flickered slightly, and there seemed to be dots of purple light flowing out. The serpent man Yu Feng, who had fallen to the side, was dumbfounded. What the hell? What had happened? What was the point of me getting hurt? What was the point of me getting hurt? At that moment, he suddenly wanted to dig a hole and bury his head in it. It turned out that the store's guardian was so strong. He actually dared to boast shamelessly that he wanted to be the store's guardian. Owner Bu must have been laughing at him for overestimating himself. Owner Bu had already rejected him, but he still decided to protect the store on his own. In the end, he was beaten like a dead dog. What a disgrace. You step back first. Xiada stopped Xingmu, who was about to strike again. His face showed a hint of interest. He looked at Xiao Bai, and the corners of his mouth curled up. The look in his eyes was as if he had spotted his prey. This puppet of yours is pretty strong. Then come and fight me. Xiada was a man of brute strength, and he was most proud of his physical strength. Looking at the chubby puppet, Xiada let out a long howl and stomped down with his foot. The floor tiles in the alleyway were instantly shattered. Boom! An extremely oppressive figure appeared in front of Xiao Bai, and a stone-like fist smashed down on Xiao Bai's chubby belly. A dull thud reverberated throughout the entire alleyway. Xiao Bai was as still as a mountain. Its mechanical head was slightly lowered, and the red light in its mechanical eyes flickered as it fell on Xiada's eyebrows twitched. Why was he completely fine? Sure enough, since your store dares to sit on the 5 stripes path understanding tree, you must have your own backing. Then today, I'll see just how strong that backing of yours is. Xiada's pupils constricted. True energy circulated within his body, and his entire body suddenly swelled up. He was much larger than Xiao Bai, like a small mountain brimming with an oppressive aura. Boom 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 boom. Xiada raised both his fists, and like an unstoppable motor, they smashed down viciously at Xiao Bai, who stood rooted to the ground. The entire alleyway shook violently, as if there was an earthquake. Gray dust floated up uncontrollably, concealing everything. Bufang no longer leaned against the door. Instead, he straightened his body and stared at the eyes of a ferocious beast in the gray smoke. He was very confident in Xiao Bai, but this time, this guy was really like a mad dog. His punches were like giant hammers, and an average 7th-grade battle saint would be wounded upon contact. Inside the store, the red-robed Mu Lingfeng was also watching solemnly. The humanoid beast, Xiada, had quite a reputation in the 3 godly temples of the wildlands. With his brute strength, he once tore a 7th-grade peak spirit beast into 2 halves. He was definitely a terrifying existence. If this kind of person attacked with all his might, the store would be in grave danger. Chapter 223. The violent tremors continued to resound. The entire alleyway seemed to be trembling. The violent tremors sent sand and stones flying everywhere. Thick smoke billowed, and within it came the roars of a savage beast. Boom boom! An invisible wave spread out. Bufang stood in the store, feeling the unceasing shock waves bombarding the store and dispersing them by an invisible force. He was slightly surprised. Ha 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 ha! Explode for me! A deafening laugh rang out. With a final explosion, the entire alleyway was reduced to ruins. Black lay at the entrance of the store, its doggy nose slightly wrinkled. It lazily looked at the smoke and dust. In its eyes, everything within the smoke and dust was presented clearly. The crowd far away from the alleyway sucked in a breath of cold air. This was an 8th-grade war god, able to achieve such a terrifying feat with just the strength of their corporeal body. Of course, they could also destroy an alleyway, but that was under the condition of using true energy. Without true energy, even though their corporeal bodies were strong, it was still impossible for them to achieve this level of destructive power. Xingmu. That puppet should have already been destroyed. A battle saint's face was full of excitement, his eyes shining. How the hell would I know? But with Elder Xia's help, that puppet will definitely be torn to pieces. A humanoid savage beast is not a joke. Xingmu's eyes were burning with passion. Suddenly, within the smoke and dust, an enormous figure leaped out and landed on the ground. His chest heaved up and down, and his mountain-like fists were emitting hot steam. In the next moment, Xiada raised his head and stared at the smoke and dust. A gust of wind whistled past and suddenly blew away the smoke and dust. Xiada gazed at the smoke and slightly narrowed his eyes. The muscles on his face were slightly trembling. Bufang was also staring at the smoke and dust. But soon, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up. Rumble! A trembling sound rang out. Within the smoke and dust, a shadow emerged, then gradually became clearer. It was still plump, still fair and emitting a metallic luster. The red light in its mechanical eyes flickered continuously. The frequency of the flickering was astonishing. What the hell? How did it not get smashed? This puppet. Someone looked at Xiao Bai, who was completely unharmed and did not even have a scratch on his body, and immediately cried out in surprise. Xingmu sucked in a breath of cold air as well. Xia Da's extreme, frenzied attacks would have smashed a 7th-level spirit beast to death, but this puppet was completely unscathed. Damn it! Does it have to be so magical? Xia Da's pupils shrank as well. Then, he exhaled a breath of air from his chest and laughed out loud. He fiercely stomped down with his foot, causing the bricks and stones to crumble. His entire body suddenly dashed out, waving his rock-like fists as he once again smashed towards Xiao Bai. Since it couldn't be smashed once or twice, then how about a dozen times, a few hundred times, wouldn't it still be smashed? Bang! However, this time, his fist did not touch Xiao Bai. The red light in Xiao Bai's eyes froze, and his fan-like palm directly slammed down. Xiada, who had rushed a few steps forward, was slapped so hard that his entire body could not hold on any longer, and he directly fell to the ground. What the hell? Xiada was enraged. He was caught off guard by this puppet. Bang! Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes locked onto Xiada. He raised his palm again and slammed it down again. With a loud bang, Xia Da's entire body was once again slammed deep into the ground, and the bricks and stones on the ground were sent flying. The ground was completely destroyed. The cracks on the ground extended to where Blackie was lying, but it was as if it was sealed by an invisible force, and no longer crumbled. Blackie yawned, and continued to watch with interest as the chubby Xiao Bai tortured people. Bang! Every slap from Xiao Bai was so calm, but in the eyes of Xing Mu and the others, it was as if he was slapping on their chests, and their minds were trembling. Damn it! I'm angry! With a roar, surging true energy surged in front of Xiao Bai. This beam of true energy soared into the sky, and was transmitted to the entire imperial city. Many people could feel it. The power of an 8th-grade war god finally burst out completely at this moment. The palm that Xiao Bai slapped down was caught by Xiada, whose entire body was covered by true energy armor. He slowly lifted it up, and Xiada's eyes were filled with anger as he coldly stared at Xiao Bai. He had already forgotten when was the last time he suffered such a great loss, and it was the first time he was slapped to the ground in such a cruel manner. It had always been him abusing others, and no one dared to treat him like this. The armor formed by true energy was overflowing with colorful lights, as if it was real. This was the specialty of an 8th-grade war god. Once he broke through to the war god level, he could condense a real object within the energy vortex in his dantian. With the nourishment of true energy and endless energy, he could transform it into a real divine weapon. This puppet of yours does have some skills. Just you wait. Once I dismantle this puppet, I'll come back and crush you alive. Xiada's gaze suddenly fell on Bufang. As the puppet's owner, Bufang was the main culprit that put him in such a difficult position. Surging murderous intent gushed out from Xiada's body, making his aura even stronger. The terrifying pressure that pervaded the air made Xing Mu and the others in the distance find it difficult to breathe. Xiao Bai, whose eyes had been locked on Xiada, suddenly glowed with a red light, so bright that it almost blinded the eyes of others. Sensing the troublemaker's murderous intent toward the host. Mode change, begin obliteration. The red light blazed to the extreme, then suddenly dimmed, turning into a strange purple color. The purple color made Xiada's body and mind tremble, and he had a bad feeling. Purple-eyed Xiaobai, activate! Bang! Xiaobai raised his leg, so fast that Xiada could barely lock onto it, and directly kicked Xiada's abdomen. Crack! A shattering sound rang out, and Xiada's entire body was kicked into the air by Xiaobai. The true energy armor on his abdomen actually shattered. Piece by piece, it fell off. Xiada's eyes widened, and he could not help but retch. Anger appeared on his face, and his murderous intent soared. With a loud bang, the small alley actually glowed brightly. In front of Xiaobai, there stood a gigantic phantom of a demonic god with 3 heads and 6 arms. All of you, go to hell! Xiada clutched his abdomen, where the true energy armor was slowly recovering. He raised his hand and clenched his fist. The phantom of the demonic god also raised its gigantic fist, and smashed it towards the purple-eyed Xiaobai below. Xiaobai's purple eyes flashed, and his entire body actually disappeared from where he was like a bolt of lightning, completely different from his slow and sluggish manner from before. Everyone subconsciously raised their heads, and saw that the chubby puppet actually floated in the air, raising its hand to resist the fist of the gigantic phantom of the demonic god. Then, under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Xiaobai's mechanical palm actually changed, actually turning into a ferocious-looking, sharp machete covered with strange patterns. The blade of the machete flashed with a cold light incomparably sharp. Swoosh! The blade light flashed, and the demonic god's arm was actually directly chopped into pieces. With a bang, it turned into true energy that filled the sky. Xiada's mind was greatly shaken, and with an angry roar, the demonic god's mouth actually spat out a black waterfall. That waterfall carried waves of destruction, as if it wanted to obliterate Xiaobai. Xiaobai did not move. The purple light in his purple eyes condensed, and a huge black hole actually appeared in that gigantic abdomen. That black waterfall hit Xiaobai's body, and was completely absorbed by that black hole. Oh my God! What kind of monster is this? Xiada's pupils shrank. He was very clear about the power of that black waterfall. Even a large city could be destroyed, but now it was actually swallowed by a puppet. Could it be any more frightening? Xiaobai's hand turned into a machete, and his figure flashed in the air. In the next instant, he actually chopped down from the head, and the gigantic true energy demonic god was directly chopped into pieces. Xiada spat out a mouthful of blood, and his figure staggered a few steps back. His gigantic body seemed to have deflated and returned to its original size. The true energy armor outside his body also cracked inch by inch and continuously disintegrated. One slash and he was defeated. Boom! The heavy sound of Xiaobai landing on the ground resounded, echoing throughout the entire alleyway. The machete fiercely swung down, and the oppressive aura almost caused the legs of Xing Mu and the others in the distance to weaken, and they could not even stand steadily. A puppet had brutally abused their elder, an 8th-grade war god. This is simply F*King Dogsh**T. A puppet, how could it be so strong? A 7th-grade battle saint trembled all over, and could not help but curse. Xiaobai really gave them too much of a fright. In the distance, Black's doggy eyes widened, and looked toward the 7th-grade battle saint, who spoke. Last time, there was a novice monk who wanted to eat dog meat, and now there was a fool who wanted to fuss? Did this dog offend you? Blackis snorted, and opened its doggy mouth, revealing its spotlessly white doggy teeth. Then, it raised its dainty doggy paw, and waved it in the air. Swoosh! The 7th-grade battle saint who had just finished cursing was still trembling in his heart, but in the next instant, his vision went black. Xing Mu stared blankly as the 7th-grade battle saint beside him turned into flying ash, scattering all over the ground. His heart seemed to have stopped beating at this moment. Fear, panic, despair, all kinds of negative emotions surged into his heart. That puppet was simply a demon. He attributed the battle saint's death to Xiaobai, because the purple-eyed Xiao Bai standing in front of them at this moment was as terrifying as a demon. No one noticed that a black dog by the door snorted arrogantly, and slowly put down its dainty doggy paw. Xiao struggled to get up from the ground, and his eyes were somewhat bloodshot. However, Xiao Bai waved the giant machete, without the slightest bit of mercy. With a swoosh, a hideous wound appeared on Xiao Da's huge body, and fresh blood gushed out from it. This puppet would really kill him. Xiao Da's ferociousness was gone, and only fear was left in his heart. Bufang, who was standing at the entrance of the store, heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Bai was indeed Xiao Bai. After all, it was the store's safeguard. With it here, an 8th-grade war god was nothing to him. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes flickered with a purple light. It took heavy steps, and each step seemed to be trampling on the hearts of Xiao and the others. This group of warriors from the ferocious hall was almost scared out of their wits. A dragon's roar came from the distant sky. A long spear was suddenly thrown down from the hand of the figure soaring in the sky. It was so fast that the tip of the spear seemed to be burning with flames. With a loud bang, the long spear stabbed into the ground in front of Xiao Bai, and surging flames surged. Inside the store, the red-robed Mu Lingfeng, who had been watching the battle, suddenly stood up with a change in expression. It was their Imperial Beast Hall's Elder Bien who had made a move. Mu Lingfeng left his seat and strode out of the store. At the entrance, Bufang gave him a puzzled look. Mu Lingfeng's figure suddenly stopped, and he glanced at Bufang, who was standing at the entrance. There seemed to be an indescribable light swirling in his eyes. Owner Bu, who was only a 5th-grade battle king, all of a sudden, a path-understanding melody came from within the store. That path-understanding melody was like an invisible ripple, spreading out from an inconspicuous corner of the store. In an instant it extended out of the alleyway, and then spread across the entire imperial city. Chapter 224. The humming was not loud, but the tinkling of the bell was like a gentle breeze blowing past, shaking the bell and emitting a sound. The sound had a calming effect, like ripples, caressing one's mind, clearing one's mind and allowing the true energy within one's body to circulate naturally. This was the path-understanding sound. A strange fragrance wafted out from the store. The originally faint fragrance became even more intense. If it was said to be a thin scent of milk before, then it was now as thick as silky milk. The two were on completely different levels. Bufang was taken aback, and so was Mu Lingfeng. Both turned their heads to look at an inconspicuous corner of the store. There, a small tree about the height of a man was swaying gently, overflowing with light and color. Mysterious runes circled around the small tree, and spiritual energy floated in the air. It was a lush green. The earthy yellow flower pot had also undergone a great transformation. The original earthy appearance was gone, replaced by a delicate glazed jadeite. The earthy yellow surface had peeled off, revealing the essence within. 3 fist-sized green fruits hung on the path-understanding tree, with 4 cloud-like patterns floating around. The last cloud-like pattern was constantly condensing. From the looks of it, it was about to be completed. Once it was done, it would signify that the 5 stripes path-understanding tree had ripened and borne fruit, signifying that the path-understanding true meaning had reached its pinnacle. When that time came, even an 8th-grade war god would not be able to resist bursting with greed. Mu Lingfeng's eyes abruptly brightened. The path-understanding fruits on the path-understanding tree had ripened. Bufang was also looking at the green fruits on the path-understanding tree with great interest. He had seen the 3 stripes path-understanding fruit before, but the quality of that fruit was not very good. It had been placed in the Light Wind Empire's palace treasury for too long, and most of its essence had been lost. It was nothing like the fruit hanging on the tree, sparkling and translucent, with cloud-like patterns floating around and overflowing with light and color. Owner Bu, has the path-understanding tree borne fruit? Mu Lingfeng, dressed in a red robe, turned to look at Bufang and asked meaningfully. But very quickly, he was stunned because he realized that Bufang didn't seem to hear what he said at all. Bufang's gaze was somewhat empty as he looked at the swaying branches and the verdant path understanding tree. The system has detected that the 5 stripes path understanding tree has borne fruit. A temporary mission has been issued. The host must guard the 5 stripes path understanding tree and use the 5 stripes path understanding fruit to develop a dish. The dish must pass the system's evaluation. Mission reward: the recipe of the Mapo Thunderbolt tofu. Just as Bufang's gaze fell upon the 5 stripes path understanding tree, the solemn voice of the system rang out in his mind. His entire person was slightly taken aback. He did not expect the system to speak at this time, and to issue a temporary mission. Using the 5 stripes path understanding fruit to develop a dish? Bufang's mouth twitched. Now that the 5 stripes path understanding fruit had ripened, a large group of experts had already gathered outside the store. For the system to issue such a mission at this time, it was as good as not giving the battle saints outside any chance. Since he wanted to develop a new dish, he definitely needed the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. However, he needed to pass the evaluation of the system. Even if he used his toes to think, he would know that it would not be easy. Hence, only 3 5 stripes path understanding fruits was too little for Bufang. Owner Bu. Mu Lingfeng frowned slightly, a trace of displeasure flashed across his refined face. Bufang had actually ignored him. However, his mind flickered as he glanced at the iron puppet that was fighting alone outside the store, and then at the matured 5 stripes path understanding tree inside the store. And in front of him stood Owner Bu, who was only a 5th grade battle king. If he captured Bufang, did that mean that the path understanding fruit would belong to him? A spear burning with raging flames pierced right in front of Xiao Bai, whose mechanical eyes were emitting a purple glow. Gravel was instantly sent flying. Everyone raised their heads in shock and stared at the void, only to see a towering figure emerge. It was a humongous black prison dragon, riding on top of which was an old man with a stooped back and a rather short stature. However, despite his short stature, the aura exuded from this old man was frighteningly strong. Bien Chongkong. Xiada, who was covered in blood, took a deep breath. His heart skipped a beat when he saw the spear in front of him, blocking the terrifying puppet's next attack. The stooped old man took a step forward, hands clasped behind his back, and actually walked slowly in the air. The black prison dragon retracted its wings, turned into a stream of light with a whistling sound, and was stored away by the old man. Bien Chongkong, an elder of the Imperial Beast Hall, was an 8th grade war god and incomparably strong. A dignified elder of the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands was actually beaten like a dead dog. What a disgrace to the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands. Bien Chongkong glanced at the blood-soaked Xiada, who was almost cleaved in half, and sneered. He raised his hand, and the spear flew into his hand. With a wave, it brought with it a heavy sense of oppression. Bien Chongkong looked at the purple-eyed Xiao Bai, his face grave. Xiada was an elder of the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands, and he couldn't just watch Xiada die here, so he made a move. A dense aroma wafted out, and the path-understanding melody drifted, almost resounding throughout the entire Imperial City. The battle saints in the Imperial City all exploded with powerful auras. They couldn't sit still any longer. The path-understanding melody was so majestic, it meant that the 5 stripes path-understanding tree had matured, and the 5 stripes path-understanding fruit should have matured as well. This was their hope of advancing to 8th grade war god. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Silhouettes galloped through the Imperial City, as fast as lightning, and converged toward the alleyway. Zhang Kong returned to the inn and saw Wu Yunbai, who was planning to sneak out. The corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a playful smile. "Don't rush, let's go together. I will get you a path understanding fruit, and when you reach the peak of 7th grade Battle Saint, I will help you break through. Zhang Kong's words revealed a rare hint of warmth. Wu Yunbai was stunned, and Master Ah Wu, who was standing beside her, blinked his eyes awkwardly. Shao Mansion. Xiao Meng donned his silver armor, meticulously combed his jet-black hair, put on his helmet, grabbed a long spear, and stepped out of the Xiao Mansion, heading toward Fong Fong's little store. After guarding the imperial city for so long, it was time for him to fight for a chance to break through to 8th grade War God. He didn't want to miss it either. A beam of sword light cut through the void, and a fierce sword will surged. Above the vault of heaven, an old man with white hair and brows rode on his sword, speeding toward the alleyway that he had been unwilling to recall. Tian Shuzi's hair and beard stood on end. Even if that alleyway brought him a nightmare, when faced with the 5 stripes path understanding fruit, and the opportunity to break through to 8th grade War God, he could not choose to give it up. Ha ha! The imperial city is so lively today. Everyone seems to be going for the 5 stripes path understanding fruit, TSK. The hooves of a donkey clattered against the ground of the imperial city. The old drunkard rode on the back of the donkey, pouring wine into his mouth, and laughing. Ai Yen and Yi Xiling rolled their eyes at the old man. Their bodies were as light as swallows, and in an instant, they dashed away, galloping into the distance. Xiao Bai's purple eyes flickered slightly, and the purple glow was cold and murderous. Anyone who sensed it would have goosebumps all over, and their hair would stand on end. One of Xiao Bai's arms, which had transformed into a machete, waved slightly, and brought up a whistling and fierce gale. Xiada looked at Xiao Bai in horror, and his heart trembled. This puppet was too terrifying. Bian Chongkong pointed his long spear in front of Xiao Bai, and his aged voice rang out. This man is an expert from the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands. Could you be magnanimous and spare his life? Xiada's face was flushed, and he felt extremely aggrieved. There was a stifling feeling in his chest, and he had nowhere to vent it. He was so miserable that he had to ask Bian Chongkong, the old man, to plead for mercy on his behalf. How vexing! Xiao Bai's mechanical head turned, and the purple glow flickered as he said, "Those who have murderous intent toward the host shall be obliterated." Boom! Then, Xiao Bai stomped down with his foot, and the ground suddenly collapsed. Bricks and stones flew everywhere, and Xiao Bai's figure burst out in a flash, so fast that it was hard for anyone to catch a glimpse of him. Bian Chongkong's eyes narrowed, and he let out a long roar full of energy. "If that's the case, then I will have to offend you." Bian Chongkong's whole body emitted a majestic true energy, which was even denser than Xiada's. A long spear pierced out like a dragon, and suddenly, the mirage of a divine dragon roared, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. As the spear swept out, crushed stones flew everywhere, and the wind howled. This spear made all the 7th grade battle saints feel suffocated. Xiao Bai's figure continued to charge forward. Facing this spear, his purple eyes flickered slightly. Then, he raised the machete in his hand and swung it down. Swoosh! Boom! With a loud explosion, the dragon-like spear was like a collapsing dam, exploding into pieces. The dragon mirage, which was hovering and roaring around it, was cut in half by the blade. Bian Chongkong's perlique trembled, and his whole body seemed to be enveloped by a majestic murderous intent. In an instant, he felt as if he had fallen into an icy cave, and his whole body stiffened. What the hell? What kind of monster was this guy? Chapter 225. It was the first time Bian Chongkong had felt such a terrifying pressure. It had been a long time since he felt this kind of palpitation. It was an emotion that had been buried deep within his heart. Although the puppet before him did not have the surging true energy that made him feel invincible, the feeling of solidity and invincibility was very strong. The puppet did not make him feel pressured by true energy, but in terms of aura, He was no match for the mere iron lump. The giant machete slashed down fiercely. The true energy on his spear was like snow in a world of ice meeting with a scorching flame. It actually melted like ice and snow, and did not intimidate the puppet at all. Bien Changkong's entire body was extremely cold. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave after being frightened by the machete. The true energy within his body was somewhat difficult to circulate. This was simply inconceivable. He was an 8th-grade war god, a peak existence even in the 3 godly temples of the wildlands. How could he be afraid? The spear was knocked away, and Bien Changkong felt a sharp pain in the web between his thumb and index finger. His entire body froze as he felt the terrifying wind whistling past. Poochie! The sound of the blade piercing through flesh was crisp and clear. It caused goosebumps to rise all over one's body for no reason. The purple-eyed puppet in front of him was shockingly fast. Like a gust of wind, it whizzed past him with the machete in hand. Then, an earth-shattering scream came from behind him. Bien Changkong felt a tightness in his chest. His body trembled slightly, and he could not help but breathe heavily. The alleyway, at this moment, suddenly became extremely quiet. A heavy object the size of a rubber ball fell to the ground with a thud. Everyone's heart trembled. Then, they looked behind Bien Changkong with eyes full of fear, and their bodies trembled like sifting chaff. The scream came and went as quickly as it came, as if it was abruptly silenced by someone's hand. Bien Changkong slowly turned his head. His old eyes suddenly shrank, and a chill surged through his entire body. Xiao Bai mechanically twisted his neck. The purple brilliance flickered for a while, then transformed into a red. That dense, murderous intent that seemed to lock down the surroundings also dissipated along with the change in the brilliance in his eyes. The pressure in everyone's hearts suddenly lessened, and many people began to breathe heavily. In front of Xiao Bai there was a huge figure kneeling. The muscles on that huge body were like a horned dragon, but that body's head had been directly chopped off. Blood was still spurting out, and the thick smell of blood spread in the alley. The machete in Xiao Bai's hand immediately transformed into a mechanical palm. It turned its head, and a red light locked onto Bien Changkong, who was scared silly. An 8th-grade war god was beheaded just like that. In this remote corner of the light-wind imperial city, an 8th-grade war god had fallen? Bien Changkong's wrinkled face trembled violently and his hunched back became even more stooped. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine. He raised his head and met the red light in the puppet's eyes. There was no killing intent that made his heart palpitate, but he had a bad feeling in his heart. Troublemakers will be stripped as an example to others. The red glow in Xiao Bai's eyes flickered as he scanned Bien Changkong's body. Owner Bu, I really need this 5 stripes path understanding fruit. I wonder if you can bear to part with it? Mu Lingfeng looked at Bu Fong with glittering eyes. At this moment the aura on his body was raised, and the pressure of a 7th-grade battle saint gradually spread out, pressing down on Bu Fong. A 5th-grade battle king was no different from an ant in the eyes of a 7th-grade battle saint. A 7th-grade battle saint only needed to release the pressure of true energy, and a 5th-grade battle king would kneel on the ground like a dead dog. This was the difference in strength. Although Mu Lingfeng felt that this was not a good thing to do, he suddenly wanted to see the aloof owner Bu kneel on the ground like a dog. Thinking about that scene, he felt that it was very interesting, and his heart was very excited. The store's guards were currently being held back by an 8th-grade war god. Although he didn't know what the outcome would be, since it was an 8th-grade war god, there shouldn't be any suspense. Furthermore, there were more than one 8th-grade war god outside. Are you threatening me? Bu Fong withdrew his consciousness from the system's mission and saw Mu Lingfeng, who was approaching him step by step with his body suffused with true energy. At this moment, Mu Lingfeng's refined face revealed a malicious intent. That look in his eyes was rather odd. Kneel. Is it because I didn't release enough pressure? Mu Lingfeng took a step forward and saw Bu Fang's somewhat doubtful expression. He was suddenly startled and couldn't help but think to himself. With another step forward, the pressure on Mu Lingfeng's body increased by another notch. Even an ordinary 6th-grade battle emperor would find it hard to withstand such pressure, let alone a battle king. Bu Fang blinked and looked at the red-faced Mu Lingfeng, who was slowly approaching him. He rolled his eyes and thought, is this guy stupid? Why isn't he kneeling? Why is he so calm and composed under my pressure? Impossible! Mu Lingfeng's pupils constricted. He was finally certain that his pressure could not subdue Bu Fang. A hint of viciousness appeared in his eyes. Since he had already chosen to strike at Owner Bu, there was no need to be overcautious. Boom! Mu Lingfeng no longer exerted his pressure. He raised his hand, stirred up his true energy, and clawed at Bu Fang. Owner Bu, I apologize for offending you. The 5 stripes path understanding fruit is a great opportunity for me. I cannot give it up, Mu Lingfeng said coldly. In the distance, Ouyang Xiaoyi had long been intimidated by Mu Lingfeng's terrifying pressure. She was cowering in a corner of the path understanding tree. With the protection of the path understanding tree, the impact of Mu Lingfeng's pressure on her was minimized. Ouyang Xiaoyi's petite face was pale as she looked worriedly at Bu Fang. Would the smelly boss die? This guy in front of her actually turned his back on her. What an abomination! Bu Fang did not fear any pressure at all. Therefore, he was not affected by Mu Lingfeng's pressure. However, seeing Mu Lingfeng attack him, his brows furrowed. Although his cultivation level had improved by quite a bit, he was still far from being able to deal with a 7th-grade battle saint. Xiao Bai was currently tied up outside. As for that lazy dog, Lazy dog? Bu Fang glanced to the side and saw a big black dog striding toward him with graceful cat-like step. Mu Lingfeng's eyes were filled with delight. As long as he could capture Owner Bu, the 5 stripes path understanding fruit would surely belong to him as the owner of the store. After consuming the fruit, he would be able to step into the realm of 8th-grade War God. 8th-grade War God was a huge threshold. It was a level he dreamed of reaching. As long as he could become an 8th-grade War God, he would stand out among the competitors of the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands and become the future successor of the godly temples. Soon, all of this would come true. Mu Lingfeng was so happy that he wanted to laugh out loud. However, in the next moment, a black dog striding cat-like steps barged into his line of sight and blocked his way. The dog lifted its head, opened its mouth slightly, and even yawned. What's with a dog striding cat-like steps? A dog wants to stop me? Mu Lingfeng sneered. His paw did not stop. It carried with it a terrifying wave of true energy, intending to pierce through the dog as well. However, just as he was a few steps away from the dog, the jade talisman on his chest suddenly heated up. The burning sensation made him instantly feel a strong sense of danger coursing through his entire body. The jade talisman glowed brightly, and a fiery red figure dashed out from it, floating above the store. The fire lion's enormous body instantly occupied most of the space in the store, making the narrow space a little crowded. Blackie looked at the fire lion hovering above its head, curled its doggy mouth, and snorted disdainfully. It raised its dainty doggy paw and swatted at the ferocious, tyrannical fire lion that was lunging at it. The fire lion was a 7th-grade spirit beast. It was incomparably tyrannical, and its combat prowess was unparalleled. Its sudden appearance and lunging at the oncoming fire lion brought with it a horrifying stench. Even Bu Fang was slightly taken aback by the sudden change in the atmosphere. Lil fire. Mu Lingfeng took a step back. He had no idea why the fire lion that had been resting peacefully in the beast-taming talisman would suddenly appear. However, in the next moment, he was once again dumbfounded. A ferocious lion roar resounded, but the lion's roar was filled with infinite fear and sorrow. Bang! With a deafening explosion, Mu Lingfeng watched in horror as the fire lion exploded into minced meat that splattered all over the place. Whoosh! Scalding blood drenched Mu Lingfeng's entire body, but his heart was as cold as ice at this moment. The minced meat and blood fell all around the store, turning into ashes at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then dissipating into nothingness. A 7th-grade fire lion, under the paw of an incomparably coquettish, cat-like black dog, was reduced to nothing. This store actually had a trump card. So the rumors of a supreme beast residing in this store were true. Blackie lowered its doggy paw. Its doggy eyes stared impassively at the trembling Mu Lingfeng, who could not even stand steadily and had fallen to the ground on his butt. Its doggy nose wrinkled slightly. The corner of Bu Fang's mouth twitched. After caressing Blackie's smooth, untainted hair, he turned around and walked toward the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. He did not even spare a glance at Mu Lingfeng, who had been petrified by Blackie's paw. Bu Fang's indifference caused Mu Lingfeng to feel despair. This meant that Bu Fang would no longer care about his life and death. What he was about to face was a terrifying supreme dog. This was simply too despairing. But Mu Lingfeng reaped what he sowed. Blackie bared its teeth, revealing a row of pearly white canine teeth. It glanced at Bu Fang's back, snorted, and raised its doggy paw once more. His target this time was none other than Mu Lingfeng, who was scared out of his wits. Chapter 226. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Within the imperial city, a series of air-rending noises resounded, one after another. On the long street, there were even more experts carrying weapons on their backs speeding toward the place where the 5 stripes path understanding fruit ripened, Fang Fang's little store. These people were not powerful 7th-grade battle saints. Some of them were merely 5th-grade battle kings or 6th-grade battle emperors. However, their goal was the same as those battle saints, all for the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. As the saying goes, treasures of the heavens and the earth are all dependent on fate. Who knows, maybe by joining in on the fun, one would be lucky enough to obtain a 5 stripes path understanding fruit. From then on, one would soar through the sky, break through the battle saint realm, become a war god, and reach the pinnacle of life. Even fantasizing about the supreme being realm would not be impossible. Like tiny insects, the figures of people rapidly converged toward the alleyway where Bu Fang was. The 13 bandits of Majo, each of them strong and powerful, carried their eye-catching exclusive weapons and rushed toward the alleyway. Even though the store had brought them nightmarish memories, facing the 5 stripes path understanding fruit, they still found it hard to control themselves. Ai Yen and Yi Xiling arrived at the alleyway one after another. Their pupils slightly constricted when they saw the scene in the alleyway, because there were already many people standing in the not-so-spacious alleyway. These people had a vigorous aura that faintly caused the air to tremble. Obviously, their cultivation levels were not weak, and there were even many 7th-grade battle saints among them. However, these people did not act rashly. The usually smooth alleyway was now covered in ruins. The walls of the alleyway had collapsed, and bricks and stones were scattered all over the ground. Xiao Bai's chubby figure stood in the alleyway like a towering mountain. Not far from Xiao Bai, a huge headless body knelt on the ground. Rip! Ai Yen and Yi Xiling were dumbstruck. A naked old man flew toward where the two of them were standing and fell flat on his face. Why is it another one being stripped? As expected of Owner Bu's crazy stripping demon. Ai Yen did not know whether to laugh or cry. She hurriedly covered the eyes of Yi Xiling, who was preparing to watch curiously, causing the latter to be extremely annoyed. Ai Yen looked at the naked old man in disgust. Bian Chongqing's wrinkled face twitched uncontrollably, but he dared not voice his anger. That puppet was too strong, and it was definitely not something he could contend with. No wonder the 5 stripes path understanding tree would appear in this little corner of the store. With such a powerhouse guarding it, it would not be strange at all. Retrieving a set of robes from his space ring, Bien Chongkong finally felt a little better. However, when he came back to his senses, he was furious. He was a dignified elder of the 3 godly temples of the wildlands, a man with a cultivation level of 8th grade war god, yet he was stripped naked and thrown out. It was simply too shameful. "Little girl, what are you looking at?" Bien Chongkong was fuming at the moment. After he put on his clothes, he saw An Yen and Yi Xiling staring at him curiously. His face immediately turned cold and he scolded them. An Yen was not a person who would suffer a loss. Her expression turned cold as she said coldly, "You, an old fart, stripped naked and ran around, and you still have the nerve to speak? Do you really think that your small body is so attractive? You're shameless." Yi Xiling also took a step forward and glared at the old man. Bien Chongkong was so angry that he almost vomited blood. The true energy in his body surged, and he planned to slap these 2 reckless girls to death. However, just as the true energy surged out from his energy center, he felt a chill behind him. He remembered that there was still a terrifying puppet in the distance. Da-da-da. The sound of donkey hooves hitting the ground resounded. A donkey slowly came into the alley, and on its back was a figure. The old drunkard drank a mouthful of wine, his face flushed red. He chuckled. "Who the hell wants to fight with the 3rd elder of the Celestial Arcanum sect?" The old drunkard carried a huge wine gourd, and his intoxicated gaze fell on Bien Chongkong. His eyebrows suddenly twitched and he chuckled. "So it's you, old fart. It's you." Bien Chongkong's eyebrows immediately straightened. The old drunkard of the Celestial Arcanum sect. This guy's cultivation level was extremely high. Who would have thought that he would also come to the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire? Could it be that he was also here for the 5 stripes path understanding fruit? This was a possibility. This person loved to brew wine, and since the 5 stripes path understanding fruit was a rare spirit fruit, it was naturally considered a top-grade ingredient. A long howl resounded, and a burly figure stepped out, instantly appearing in the sky. This was a man wearing half a silver mask, and a strong aura constantly emitted from his body. "The 5 stripes path understanding fruit has ripened. I don't need much, just one." Zhang Kong stood proudly in the sky, looking down at the store below, and said calmly, "Another 8th grade war god." The old drunkard took a sip of wine, and his eyes narrowed. Bien Chongkong also looked at Zhang Kong, and his eyes were filled with mischief. An 8th grade war god was indeed strong, but in this alley, a war god had already fallen. Zhang Kong frowned, and when he realized that no one was responding to him, he took another step forward. With this step, he traversed a long distance, and arrived in front of the store. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something, and looked into the store. Bang bang! After a few consecutive explosions, accompanied by the wails of spirit beasts, a red-clothed figure stumbled out of the store, and his heart was filled with despair and fear. That was a 7th grade battle saint, and Zhang Kong could sense his cultivation level. Bien Chongkong's expression changed. "Oh no! Why is Ling Feng in that store?" Sensing Mu Lingfeng's terrified expression, Bien Chongkong had no time to think, and his figure burst out, dashing toward Mu Lingfeng. Elder Bien, save me!" Mu Lingfeng rushed out of the store, and saw Bien Chongkong dashing toward him. As if grasping at a life-saving straw, he burst into tears. "Dead, they're all dead. Lil Fire was dead, and so were Lil Water and Lil Thunder. 7th grade spirit beasts could not withstand the might of that terrifying black dog's paw. His 3 7th grade spirit beasts were slaughtered by a dog. His heart ached, but compared to the pain, he felt more fear at the moment. That dog was a demon. Bien Chongkong's face was full of disbelief. This was the first time he felt such fear from Mu Lingfeng. He pulled Mu Lingfeng to his side, and sensed that an attack was coming from the store. A dog paw made of true energy? Bien Changkong's expression turned strange. A dainty dog paw could scare the young master of the Imperial Beast Hall of the Wildlands to such an extent? Elder, be careful. Dodge. Mu Lingfeng saw that Bien Changkong was foolishly trying to block the dog paw, and he was scared out of his wit. 3 7th-grade spirit beasts could be found, but the elder of the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands was dead. This was going to be a big problem. Bien Changkong was taken aback, and his expression turned solemn. An exquisite true energy armor appeared on his body, and with a flash of light in his hand, a small black snake coiled around his arm. Hiss! The little snake flicked its tongue, and a terrifying pressure spread out. It was also a 7th-grade spirit beast. Against the dog paw, Bien Changkong flung the little snake away. This 7th-grade black water snake was his treasure, and its attack power was terrifying. Even an average 8th-grade war god would fall prey to it if they were not careful. The little snake opened its mouth in the air, revealing its fangs and spitting out venom. However, the next moment the dog paw crushed the snake with a bang, and the snake exploded into a cloud of blood mist. What the hell? Bien Changkong's whole body trembled, and the fear in his eyes surged out like a flood that had lost its restraints. A 7th-grade spirit beast turned into a cloud of blood mist with a single paw. Could this dog paw be any more terrifying? Without hesitation, Bien Changkong turned around, planning to escape. But could he? He stood in front of Mu Lingfeng, and the dog paw came crashing down. A loud bang. With nowhere to hide, Bien Changkong summoned his long spear to block the attack. Splatter! Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Bien Changkong's bones cracked like beans being fried, and the long spear in his hand shattered. His whole body was sent flying, crashing into the wall of the alleyway. The true energy armor on his body scattered and shattered, a dog paw, and an 8th-grade war god was on the brink of death. Mu Lingfeng slumped to the ground. He felt as if his entire world had turned gray and gloomy. Zhang Kong's face twitched and he coughed to himself. He retracted his palm without thinking. That dog paw had scared him. The alleyway became extremely quiet at that moment, with the sound of something piercing through the air from time to time. Other warriors gathered in the alleyway, but sensing the heavy atmosphere, they did not even dare to breathe loudly. Tap, tap, tap. Amidst the silence, a series of footsteps came from within the store, and a slender figure emerged from the shadows. Bufang held 3 5-stripes path understanding fruits brimming with spirit energy in his hand as he arrived at the entrance of the store. On his right was a big black dog that was strutting its cat-like steps, while on his left was a little lowly that was following suit with every step. This peculiar combination attracted the attention of everyone present. Looking at the 5-stripes path understanding fruits in the slender young man's hand, everyone's breathing became heavy. The main character had finally appeared. The 3 fruits in Bufang's hand were all opportunities for them. If they could get one, it would be a great opportunity for them, and they might even have the chance to break through to the realm they yearned for day and night. Zhang Kong and the other 8th-grade war gods were slightly better off. Even though the 5-stripes path understanding fruit was precious, it was only useful to 7th-grade battle saints. For 8th-grade war gods, its effect was very weak. However, it was still a treasure of heaven and earth after all. If they could obtain it, it would not be a bad thing. After all, he had promised Wu Yunbai that he would obtain a 5-stripes path understanding fruit for her. Rumble. The ruins in the wall tumbled, and a wretched figure crawled out from within. This person's appearance was too miserable. His whole body was covered in fresh blood, and he looked hideous and terrifying. Cough, cough. Bien Changkong coughed out blood, his eyes filled with fear. The dog's paw just now had brought him a greater sense of fear than that of the iron puppet. This shop was unbelievable. Elder Bien. Mu Lingfeng hurried to Bien Changkong's side and helped him up. Looking at Bien Chongkong, who was covered in blood, he could not help but gasp. This was an 8th-grade war god, and yet he was beaten to such a miserable state. That dog, could it really be the legendary Supreme Beast? Supreme Beast, even in the depths of the wildlands, it was a taboo existence. To think that such a terrifying existence would appear in this alley of the Imperial City. Owner Bu, I am Zhan Kong, one of the commanders of the White Cloud Villa. Today, I am here to ask for the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. Faced with the formidable combat power of the store, Zhan Kong finally chose to compromise. He saluted Bu Fong with his hands cupped in obeisance. The leader of the White Cloud Villa and the surrounding people started whispering to each other. The White Cloud Villa was a force located in the illusory spirit swamp. Many people present did not recognize them. Elder Bien's expression changed. As an elder, he naturally knew the strength of the White Cloud Villa. It was a force on the same level as the 3 godly temples of the Wildland. Therefore, he looked at Zhan Kong with a solemn expression. Owner Bu, I am Bien Chongkong, an elder of the 3 godly temples of the Wildlands. Today, I am also here to ask for the spiritual fruit. The old drunkard, who was far away, chuckled. He did not introduce himself like the other 2. He merely drank a mouthful of wine, wiped his mouth, and chuckled happily. Many people looked at Bu Fong with hope in their eyes. They were filled with anticipation. Bu Fong stood at the entrance and calmly scanned the area. Looking at the almost destroyed alley, he suddenly furrowed his brows. I know the purpose of your visit today. The 3 5 stripes path understanding fruits are also in my hand. Bu Fong said. Then, he raised his hand and waved the 3 5 stripes path understanding fruits in front of the crowd, attracting the attention of many. However, with a flip of his hand, he kept the 3 fruit. The corner of his mouth twitched and he said calmly, But, I do not intend to give the 5 stripes path understanding fruits to you. Everyone was dumbfounded. Then, the crowd became restless. Bu Fong did not intend to hand over the 5 stripes path understanding fruits? Did he intend to keep the 3 treasures for himself? This made the crowd somewhat dissatisfied. They had traveled thousands of miles to the light-wind Imperial City just for this moment, for the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. Now, the owner of a small store actually wanted to keep the path understanding fruits for himself? This was simply provoking the anger of the crowd. Zhan Kong's expression did not look too good. He did not expect Bu Fong to reject him in such a way. Owner Bu, there are so many people here. It is not good for you to keep the spirit fruits for yourself, Zhan Kong said coldly. His words also represented the thoughts of the crowd. Everyone was glaring at Bu Fong. However, what surprised them was that under their scrutinizing gazes, Bu Fong's expression did not change at all. He was still as calm and composed as before. Bu Fong tilted his head, looked at Zhan Kong doubtfully, and said, Keep it for myself? You say I'm keeping it for myself? This seed of the 5 stripes path understanding tree was won by me in the Imperial City's 100 family banquet. Since it was won by me, it means that the seed belongs to me. Then, I planted the seed in the store, and it sprouted and grew until it matured and bore fruit today. You say I'm keeping it for myself? Where are your faces? Bu Fong's voice was not loud, nor did it seem to be mixed with boundless anger. It was the kind of indifference that came from a matter-of-fact discussion. However, his words rendered the crowd speechless. That's right, this 5 stripes path understanding tree belonged to Bu Fong. Bu Fong was the owner of this heaven and earth treasure. He had absolutely no obligation to hand over this 5 stripes path understanding fruit. After listening to Bu Fong's words, the old drunkard suddenly chuckled. He swept his gaze across the crowd, and the corner of his mouth curled up. He hugged his wine gourd and took another gulp of wine. The aroma of the wine filled the air. But you have 3 spiritual fruits. If you keep them all for yourself, you will incur the wrath of the crowd. Heaven and earth treasures belong to the fated ones. You. Among the crowd, there was someone who was unwilling to give up. That's right. You cannot keep this heaven and earth treasure to yourself. If I can't obtain this heaven and earth treasure today, I will King fight with you. Whoever destroys my hope of breaking through will be my enemy. The voices of cursing rose and fell, increasing in number. The crowd of heroes became agitated, cursing at Bufang one after another. It was as if they would kill him at the slightest disagreement. Bufang single-handedly held the 3 path understanding fruits, his eyes filled with slight impatience. He needed to complete the system's temporary task. 3 fruits were simply not enough. How could he share them with others? The corner of his mouth twitched. He could not be bothered to speak more with this crowd. He turned around, intending to return to the store. Owner Bu, please stop. We will pay the crystals. We will buy this spiritual fruit. Bien Chongkong, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke up, his eyes fixed on Bufang. Yes, yes, yes. Crystals are not a problem. Mu Lingfeng also came to his senses and nodded. Buying spiritual fruit. Bufang's heart skipped a beat. He turned around and looked at Bien Chongkong. Bien Chongkong was instantly delighted. I am willing to pay 5,000 crystals for a 5 stripes path understanding fruit. I wonder if Owner Bu agrees? 5,000 crystals for a path understanding fruit was a fair price. After all, the 5 stripes path understanding fruit increased the chances of a 7th grade battle saint breaking through to 8th grade war god. It did not guarantee a breakthrough. 5,000 crystals was still a risk. I will pay 7,000 crystals. Zhang Kong glanced at Bien Chongkong and calmly reported. Haha, I like this kind of peaceful method the most. Fighting and killing is so boring. This old man will offer 9,000 essence crystals. The 5 stripes path understanding fruit should be a good ingredient for brewing wine. The old drunkard finally opened his mouth and laughed heartily. Bien Chongkong glared at the two angrily, gnashing his teeth. I will pay 10,000 crystals. 10,000 crystals, hiss, hiss, hiss. A wave of gasps came from the crowd. These were crystals, not gold coins. 10,000 crystals, this was a sky-high price. Using it to buy a 5 stripes path understanding fruit, it was a loss. The entire wealth of a 7th grade battle saint was probably only about 10,000 crystals. Everyone felt that Bufang would definitely agree. After all, this price was hard to resist. Bufang was naturally tempted. 10,000 crystals, if converted into cultivation, it would save him a lot of effort. After thinking for a moment, Bufang asked the system, System, if I sell the spirit fruits, will the crystals I get be counted as part of the sales? The system's solemn and earnest voice quickly sounded. No. The host's cultivation level is linked to the sales. The so-called sales level requires the host to sell the dishes he cooked. The crystals earned from selling the spiritual fruit cannot be used to increase cultivation level. Bufang was expressionless. As expected, he knew that the system would not let him take the shortcut. Under the crowd's expectant gaze, everyone thought that Bufang would definitely choose to sell the spiritual fruit. Bufang looked at Bien Chongkong, who was gnashing his teeth in pain, and said calmly, Do I look like the kind of person who lacks crystals? This 5 stripes path understanding fruit, no matter how many crystals you offer, I will not sell it. Hua. As soon as Bufang's words came out, it immediately caused an uproar. Bien Chongkong was dumbfounded. He also felt a surge of anger. This owner Bu wants to keep this spiritual fruit for himself. Let's go together and snatch this spiritual fruit. This is our opportunity. What right does he have to take it for himself? Kill. Snatch the spiritual fruit. Damn it. For the breakthrough, for the opportunity, let's go together. Bufang's words were like a knife cutting off the hope in the hearts of the surrounding people. The originally restless crowd could no longer bear it. In the face of enough profit, what shall buy? What supreme dog? All of them were fleeting clouds. The densely packed experts emitted surging true energy and rushed toward Bufang's store. Every one of them had a greedy look on their faces. With so many people rushing over, the terrifying aura they emitted caused even Zhang Kong's expression to change. Bufang's eyes turned cold. Looking at this overwhelming group of greedy experts, he let out a soft sigh. Since you all want to die, then die. Chapter 228. In the imperial capital, a large mass of genuine qi suddenly burst out, like a beam of light soaring into the sky, instantly rushing into the sky. Layers of genuine qi ripples spread out in all directions, almost enveloping the entire imperial capital. All kinds of true energy gushed out, and all kinds of angry shouts filled the air. The alleyway was in a complete uproar at this moment. For the ripened 5 stripes path understanding fruit, the experts present could no longer hold themselves back. And Ai Yan's face paled slightly. She could feel the experts roaring and rushing out from the surroundings, and her pretty face turned ugly. She pulled Yi Xiling, who was next to her, closer to her so that she would not be separated by the rampaging experts. She looked in the direction of the store, which was being surrounded by more and more experts. And Ai Yan did not understand why Bufang did not agree to sell the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. If he agreed to sell, then all problems would be solved. If he agreed to help, then the surrounding experts would not riot, because the people who bought the path understanding fruits were all powerful individuals. Zhang Kong, Bian Changkong, and the others were all 8th grade war gods, so those people would not have any thoughts of robbing them. However, Bufang insisted on keeping the 5 stripes path understanding fruit in his hands, which gave those people the opportunity to rob it. This was also the reason for this fight. Sister and Ai Yan, that owner Bu will be alright, right? Yi Xiling looked at an Ai Yan, who was beside her, doubtfully. And Ai Yan gritted her teeth, as if she had made up her mind, and the true energy in her body surged. Yi Xiling was startled. Sister and Ai Yan, you also want to join the fight? Fight my ass. Stay by the old drunkard's side, I will go help owner Bu. And Ai Yan smacked Yi Xiling's head in annoyance. And Ai Yan knew that Bufang had an incomparably powerful puppet, Xiao Bai, as well as a terrifying black dog. However, there were too many people in front of them, and the entire alleyway was completely surrounded. The explosion of true energy almost caused the alleyway's walls to collapse. There were even 7th grade battle saints among them. This combination, even an 8th grade war god would be overwhelmed in an instant. And Ai Yan did not waste any more words. Her eyes narrowed and the aura on her body suddenly surged. She stretched out her snow-white wrist and dashed a few steps forward, grabbing the 2 figures that were rushing past her. Get the F***CK out of my sight. And Ai Yan fiercely stomped on the ground. True energy seemed to be lingering around both of her arms as she fiercely flung the 2 battle kings that she was holding onto. Bang! The 2 battle kings were immediately sent flying by the greedy crowd. They vomited blood and were severely injured, howling miserably. And Ai Yan was incomparably domineering. Her hair fluttered under the wind of her true energy. Her expression was solemn, and her aura surged. After sending a few experts flying with a few moves, she also felt her aura fluctuating. Although she had blocked many people, there were simply too many people around. TSS, TSS, TSS. A lightning arrow whizzed past, carrying with it a frightening and manic fluctuation as it passed through the crowd, piercing through many people and seriously injuring them. Yi Xiling released the bowstring and a soft sound rang out. Sister and Ai Yan, let me help you. Since all of you are courting death, then all of you can go and die. Bufang's voice was not loud, but it still spread throughout the alleyway, allowing everyone in the alleyway to hear it. When the anxious experts heard these words, not only did they not cower, their eyes became even redder. Kill. If you don't hand over the 5 stripes path understanding fruit, we will tear down your store. Then we will kill you. Someone boasted shamelessly. Battle cries were transmitted over. Xiao Bai blocked the entrance of the store with his big belly. The red glow in his mechanical eyes flickered for a while, then turned into a purple glow. Those who have killing intent toward the host, obliterate. Swoosh. The machete in Xiao Bai's hand reappeared. With a swing of the machete, it directly chopped off the heads of the 2 battle emperors who were charging at the forefront. The thick stench of blood permeated the air. However, not only did this group of people not cower, it instead increased their bravery. Ai Yen and Yi Xiling also retreated as they fought. They retreated until they were in front of Bufang, both of them in a sorry state. Owner Bu, are you crazy? Why do you have to go against so many people? Ai Yen was a little angry as she opened her mouth. She could not understand Bufang's actions at all. Some people who were familiar with Bufang also resisted the frenzied crowd and retreated to the entrance of the store. Xiao Meng, Wu Yunbai, and the others were all in a sorry state. Bufang swept his gaze over these people who helped him, a touch of gentleness emerging in his eyes. However, when his gaze fell upon those malevolent and greedy people, his eyes became incomparably cold. Lazy dog, these people don't need to hold back, Bufang said coldly. For the first time, his tone was overflowing with killing intent. The black puppy raised its head and curled its lip. Its nose slightly twitched, and its eyes seemed to reveal a touch of excitement. Don't need to hold back? Very well. It stuck out its tongue and licked its mouth, revealing its white and sharp teeth. Greed is the source of all evil. This group of reckless humans. The gentle and indifferent voice of a man suddenly rang out, reverberating throughout the entire alleyway like a thunderclap. Zhang Kong, who stood motionless amidst the crowd, suddenly froze. He felt a terrifying sense of danger that he had never felt before. That sense of danger made his heart beat violently. Run! Without the slightest hesitation, Zhang Kong turned around and retreated. He soared into the air and escaped from the vicinity of the store. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Another few figures dashed out from the frenzied crowd and hovered in the air, shouting wildly with palpitations. It was the old drunkard riding on his donkey. This old fellow's donkey was also hovering in the air, crying out in alarm. Bian Chongkong pulled Mu Lingfeng out of the alleyway as well. There were many experts in the vicinity who also sensed the danger. They all looked down with solemn and fearful expressions. Blackus strutted his enchanting cat-like steps and walked out of the store. Bufang ordered Ai Yen and the others to retreat and enter the vicinity of the store. Blackus stood by the side of Xiao Bai, who had already turned completely blood-red. Xiao Bai was only a puppet and did not possess any true energy. Even though he had the combat prowess to fight against a 9th-grade warrior, he was still a little overwhelmed in a group battle. This was the time when the Lord Go had to step in. A 6th-grade battle emperor with red eyes bellowed. His body surged with true energy as he swung the huge axe in his hand at the black dog that had just emerged. You're courting death. Lord Dog let out a soft bark as it faced the axe shadow that was slashing toward it. Its eyes focused, and it raised its paw to slap forward. Immediately, the axe shadow was smashed into pieces, and that 6th-grade battle emperor turned into a cloud of blood mist with a bang. However, the fall of one person only caused the hearts of the surrounding people to feel a slight chill. The others were still charging forward with angry roars. Boom! A terrifying pressure emerged from Blacka's body. The group of roaring experts suddenly stopped and froze in their track. Under their horrified gazes, the black dog's body actually grew bigger and bigger. Its charmingly naive appearance also gradually disappeared. In just a moment, it turned into a black dog that was more than 2 meters tall. A faint black flame was burning on its jet-black body. Sizzle, the air seemed to be scorched. Everyone felt a sense of oppression in their hearts. They were pressed to the ground by the pressure from the giant dog. Regardless of whether they were battle kings, battle emperors, or even battle saints, they all trembled and fell to the ground. Boom! The giant dog took a step forward, causing the ground to tremble. The giant dog slightly narrowed its eyes and sighed softly. Then, as if space was torn apart, it suddenly disappeared on the spot. Poochie! The giant dog galloped past, leaving a bloody path in its wake as it arrived at the center of the area. The giant dog swept its gaze across the crowd and bared its hideous and sharp teeth. Then, it raised its head and let out a howl that shook the heavens. With a loud bang, the ground of the alleyway was instantly crushed. Bang! The people kneeling in the vicinity all screamed in agony. Blood spurted out of their orifices as they struggled to escape the alleyway. However, they only managed to crawl a few steps before exploding into a mist of blood. The battle saints struggled a little longer, but in the end they still exploded, leaving not even their bones behind. The experts hovering in the air witnessed this terrifying scene with their own eyes. They felt as if their hearts were being grasped by an invisible dog's paw and would explode with a single squeeze. Ninth grade, Supreme Beast. Mu Lingfeng was absolutely certain at this moment that the dog had definitely reached the level of a 9th grade Supreme Beast. At this moment, the crowd in the air broke out in a cold sweat and rejoiced. Because in their eyes, the alleyway had turned into a living hell. The continuous explosions of blood signified the fall of a human. All of them had misjudged the strength of the store from the beginning. The trump card of the store was not that puppet at all, but this terrifying 9th grade Supreme Beast that had always been there but never caught their attention. Chapter 229. Bang bang bang! Miserable howls continuously rang out from within the store. Every howl represented an expert turning into a cloud of blood mist. This was a scene from Azura Hell. It was a terrifying scene that made one's heart clench involuntarily. Xiao Bai had already returned to his red-eyed state. The blood on his body was also automatically purified. He once again reverted to his chubby white appearance as he stood behind Bufang. And Ai Yen and the others were shaken to the core. They were so frightened by the terrifying scene that their faces turned deathly pale. They had never seen such a terrifying scene before. Even Xiao Meng, who was used to seeing slaughter, felt his chest tighten. His pores slightly opened and his back was drenched in cold sweat. Yi Xiling widened her eyes and her lips turned deathly pale. She was originally a well-behaved girl who stayed in the 100,000 mountains. Even though her cultivation level was not bad, she had never seen the bloodiness of a battlefield, let alone such a shocking scene. Looking at the big black dog standing in the middle of the alleyway barking incessantly, a sense of reverence rose in everyone's heart. Bufang's complexion was also slightly pale. However, he still tried his best to control it. The wild barking of the giant dog did not resound throughout the entire imperial city. It was enveloped by Black's aura and only resounded within the alleyway. Therefore, the outside of the imperial city was still peaceful and there was not even a single terrifying aura. The ground of the alleyway was finally shattered and dyed red with fresh blood. Some people managed to escape from the alleyway, but their minds were already almost completely destroyed. They did not even dare to turn their heads back as they frantically ran away. Those who managed to escape were basically 7th grade battle saints. These battle saints all had their own methods of survival, so they managed to survive. The wild barking finally stopped. The giant dog also lowered its raised head. Its indifferent eyes swept across the surroundings. When it saw the empty alleyway, it suddenly snorted and its body shrank. In the end, it turned back into the plump Blackie. Striding elegantly like a cat, Blackie returned to the store. The terrifying pressure that enveloped the alleyway finally dissipated. It was as if the boulder hanging in everyone's heart had finally fallen to the ground. Their tense minds relaxed and they let out a long sigh of relief. The black puppy opened its mouth and yawned. Its lazy look made it look like it was asking for a beating. However, Xiao Meng and the others looked at the black dog in awe, not even daring to breathe loudly. Bufang patted Xiao Hei's head and lifted his head to look at the crowd floating in the sky above the alleyway. He asked lightly, "Do you still want the 5 stripes path understanding fruits? Want? Want your sister, want." Everyone wanted to curse in their hearts. They also wanted it, but did they have their lives to take it? Such a terrifying dog was not something they could contend against. Facing such a dog, even an 8th grade war god would feel powerless. Don't be too discouraged or too disappointed, Bufang said seriously as he looked at the crowd in the sky. The reason why I am not selling the 5 stripes path understanding fruit is because I need it. I will use the path understanding fruit to make dishes. Although you guys can't get the path understanding fruit, you can still choose to purchase the dishes. I believe that these dishes will not disappoint you. Making dishes? Use the 5 stripes path understanding fruit? The crowd in the sky suddenly had a funny look on their faces, as if they had just been f***ked. The 5 stripes path understanding fruit was such a precious treasure of heaven and earth, and you are telling us that you want to use it to make dishes? Zhang Kong and Bian Chongkong were a little speechless. On the other hand, the old drunkard with the donkey in the sky grinned, feeling that it was very interesting. He wanted to use the 5 stripes path understanding fruit to brew wine, but this Bufang actually wanted to use the 5 stripes path understanding fruit to make dishes. Both of them had the same thought process. The old drunkard suddenly laughed out loud, picked up the wine gourd, and took a big gulp of wine to calm himself down. Then, he pulled the donkey, which refused to come down no matter what, to land in the alleyway, and walked toward the store. The donkey was eventually left in the alleyway by the old drunkard, and not brought into the store. This old man is looking forward to Ownerbu's dishes made with the 5 stripes path understanding fruit, the old drunkard said with a smile. Bufang looked at the old man in surprise, nodded, and said nothing. In the sky, Zhang Kong and the others frowned, and finally chose to land and step into the store. This storm finally ended. In this inconspicuous alleyway of the Imperial City, an unknown number of experts had fallen. Some 7th grade battle saints escaped from the alleyway and madly rushed out of the Imperial City, not even looking back. They were really frightened by that dog. On the long street of the Imperial City, the ghost chef Wang Ding slowly walked over. He held a porcelain jar in one hand and his face was calm. Why is there no movement in the alleyway? Could it be that I'm too late? Is the battle already over? The ghost chef was a little confused. According to his understanding, this store should not be so weak. Arriving at the entrance of the alleyway, he looked inside. The gloomy alleyway was very spacious, without a single person inside. However, a thick smell of blood assaulted his face, making the ghost chef feel as if he had fallen into a sea of blood. Taking a deep breath, the ghost chef's expression was somewhat solemn. He stepped into the alleyway, and with one step, the sole of his foot felt soft, sinking deep into the ground. Shocked, he looked down to see that the ground of the alleyway was actually covered with a layer of chisel powder. In this alleyway, what the hell happened? The ghost chef's heart suddenly thumped, and he felt a sense of unease. So quiet. Could it really be over? But why hasn't this store been destroyed? The ghost chef slowly stepped forward, and arrived in front of the store. Unexpectedly, the store was actually bustling with people. Could it be that this store has been invaded? It's possible, definitely possible. The ghost chef made up his mind and took a deep breath. Without hesitation, he opened the lid of the porcelain jar. A thick stench wafted out, causing the ghost chef to frown slightly. This smell was really unpleasant. Pouring all the meat soup in the porcelain jar into his mouth, the ghost chef instantly felt all the meridians in his body swell. Clang! The porcelain jar fell to the ground and shattered. It immediately attracted the attention of the people in the store. They looked outside, and were surprised to see an old man with disheveled hair kneeling on the ground, convulsing. After convulsing for a while, the old man stood up, and that old face actually became much younger. The ghost chef Wang Ding twisted his neck, feeling the flood of energy in his body, and resisted the urge to laugh out loud. Was this the power of an 8th-grade war god? Sure enough, it was intoxicating. Next, it was time to obtain the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. The ghost chef smiled evilly, raised his head, and his eyes met the curious gazes coming from within the store. Bu Fong grabbed the 3 5 stripes path understanding fruits and returned to the kitchen. He placed the 3 spirit fruits, which were overflowing with color, emitting rich true energy, and shrouded in 5 cloud patterns, on the stove. Staring at the 3 fruits, he frowned and rubbed his chin, thinking about something. The temporary task was to use the 5 stripes path understanding fruit to create a dish, and pass the evaluation of the system to complete the task. But what kind of dish should he make? This was what troubled Bu Fong at the moment. Should I process the 5 stripes path understanding fruit according to the method of smashing cucumbers, and restore the original taste of the spirit fruit? Bu Fong murmured, but this idea was quickly rejected by him. If he really did that, it would definitely not pass. Because according to the system's nature, it was impossible to let Bu Fong complete the task by trickery. After thinking for a while, Bu Fong picked up a 5 stripes path understanding fruit. Green smoke curled around his hand, and a pitch-black ancient dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. Taking a chopping board, Bu Fong twirled the kitchen knife in his hand, and with a flourish, he directly cut the 5 stripes path understanding fruit into 2 halves. Suddenly, a rich fruit aroma gushed out with a hint of heat. From the cut flesh, a thick, fragrant juice flowed out, and the juice was warm and warm. After carefully examining the 5 stripes path understanding fruit, he muttered to himself for a while, and the kitchen knife in his hand rapidly cut. The spirit fruit was cut into neat pieces. He planned to first cook a dish to try it out. From the cupboard, he took out an egg. This was a 5th-grade spirit beast egg, although it was not suitable for this path understanding fruit. After beating the egg into a bowl, Bu Fong started a fire and heated up the wok. When the temperature of the oil in the wok had reached a suitable level, he poured in the oil. When the oil was boiling, he poured the chopped path understanding fruit into the wok, which was filled with spirit energy and aroma. Instantly, a sizzling sound resounded. The oil splashed everywhere. Controlling the true energy to flow into the wok, Bu Fong controlled the direction of the spirit energy in the wok, so that the spirit energy in the spirit fruit would not be destroyed. After stir-frying for a while, Bu Fong poured the egg juice into the wok. At the same time, he also poured in the juice of the path understanding fruit. When the two mixed, a rich, intoxicating aroma burst out. When Bu Fong smelled the fragrance, he felt his mind clear up, and he felt extremely comfortable. "It smells so good!" Bu Fong exclaimed in admiration. Then, he began to stir-fry quickly. In just a short while, the egg liquid in the wok began to solidify. Because it had fused with the path understanding fruit juice, the solidified egg liquid did not look tender and yellow. Instead, it was somewhat sparkling and translucent like jelly. Covering the wok, Bu Fong stir-fried for a while. He controlled his true energy to guide the spirit energy in the wok, so that the spirit energy in the dish reached a balance. Finally, Bu Fong opened the wok, and hot steam gushed out, carrying the aroma with it as it rushed out of the kitchen. Taking out a white, round porcelain plate, he scooped out the dish. Skillfully arranging the plate, he placed the path understanding fruit in a circle, which was overflowing with color and emitting steam. In the middle, there was a crystal-clear scrambled egg. The spirit energy from the scrambled egg surged up, and the spirit energy from the spirit fruit also gushed out. Above the dish, streaks of cloud patterns appeared. Path understanding fruit scrambled egg. This name is too old-fashioned. Let's call it Path Understanding Flower Blossom. It sounds a little more classy, and it looks pretty good. The dragon bone kitchen knife in Bufang's hand twirled, then turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared. Bufang looked at the dish, which was emitting a golden radiance and was shrouded in cloud patterns, and the corners of his mouth curled up. System, does this dish pass the evaluation? Bufang asked the system. If this dish could pass the evaluation, then it would save Bufang a lot of effort. Therefore, Bufang was looking forward to it. However, the system's solemn and earnest voice quickly resounded in Bufang's mind. Dish name: Path Understanding Flower Blossom. Chef, host Bufang. Spirit energy content: 70%. Path Understanding factor: 70%. Final evaluation: after a 7th grade battle saint eats it, it will be difficult to achieve a breakthrough to 8th grade war god. Therefore, it does not pass the evaluation. Chapter 230. As expected, it failed the evaluation. Bufang knew that it would not be easy to pass the system's evaluation. The evaluation tests the spirit energy content and the path understanding factor of a dish. Bufang rubbed his chin as he muttered. He had used the dragon bone kitchen knife to cut the path understanding fruit, so the spirit energy should be well preserved. As for the loss of the remaining 30% of spirit energy, it should be because he did not control the flow of spirit energy well during the cooking process. Then isn't this dish a waste? Bufang looked at the path understanding flower enshrouded in cloud patterns and suddenly felt his heart ache. The host wants to become the god of cooking who stands at the top of the food chain in this fantasy world. Dishes that fail the evaluation cannot be sold. The system's solemn and serious voice came out. If a failed dish were to be sold, it would be disrespectful to the diners and also to the chef's own skills. The dish presented by the chef must be a successful dish that could conquer the chef himself. Bufang sighed. Xiao Bai had come to his side without him noticing. It patted its plump belly, and Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes twinkled. Then, its round belly opened up, revealing a huge, pitch-black hole. This was the hole that Xiao Bai used to collect trash. Bufang picked up the dish and frowned. Suppressing his heartache, he poured it into Xiao Bai's stomach. This meant that the first path understanding fruit had been wasted just like that. After dealing with the first failed dish, Bufang did not rest. Instead, he pondered for a while, thinking about how to cook a dish that could ensure the spirit energy content and the path understanding factor were intact. The system did not provide a recipe, and Bufang was already used to this situation. Many of his dishes were developed by himself, which was very important for a chef. This was the so-called sense of innovation. Bufang's mind flickered, and he took out several ingredients from the system's dimensional storage. Wandering dragon beef, fat fish from the illusory spirit swamp, and some spirit fruits and spirit herbs. These were the ingredients he had, and the system did not provide many ingredients. There were only 2 path understanding fruits left. If Bufang wanted to complete the temporary task, he could not afford to make any mistake. Bufang stared at the only ingredients available. His gaze finally drifted between the wandering dragon beef and the fat fish. Should he choose the beef or the fat fish? Pah! With a snap of his fingers, Bufang had an idea. He actually did not choose the 7th-level wandering dragon meat that he usually used, but chose the 1st-level illusory spirit swamp fat fish. This fat fish was obtained by Bufang from the Naga tribe. Its meat was plump and tasted great when roasted. However, Bufang did not intend to grill fish this time, because he was very clear that grilled fish was not suitable for the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. He first cleaned the fat fish and cut open its belly. Holding the dragon bone kitchen knife, he began to beat the fish meat with the back of the knife. True energy continuously seeped into the fish meat through the dragon bone kitchen knife, causing the fish meat to become radiant and overflowing with color. Then, he made a few cuts on the fish body. After that, Bu Fong began to process the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. He cut the path understanding fruit into 2 halves, stored the juice in a porcelain bowl, and sliced it. The rich spirit energy once again dissipated and floated around the entire kitchen, making one's mind extremely clear. Taking the juice, Bu Fong carefully and meticulously smeared it on the fish meat. Every part of the fish was smeared with the juice of the path understanding fruit, and the juice quickly seeped into the fish meat. Taking out a blue and white porcelain plate, Bu Fong took 2 pieces of the path understanding fruit's flesh and stuffed them into the fish's mouth, blocking the air passage. Then, he stuck the rest of the fruit's flesh on the fish's body, surrounding it. He opened the pot, lit the fire, took out a steamer, and placed it in the pot. Bu Fong placed the processed fat fish into the steamer. That's right, the dish he chose to make this time was steamed fish. However, this steaming method was not as easy as cooking. He had to maintain the flow of true energy at all times, controlling the changes of the fish meat in the steamer and the spirit energy in the fish meat. The higher the grade of the ingredient, the higher the requirement of the chef's true energy to process it. The 5 stripes path understanding fruit was of a very high grade, containing rich spirit energy and path understanding factors. In order not to destroy the spirit energy and path understanding factors, Bu Fong had to constantly control it with true energy. This was also a type of true energy cooking, and true energy cooking was a test of the chef's cultivation level. Bu Fong concentrated, and the true energy in his dantian was mobilized. It constantly dispersed from his palms, covering the top of the steamer, and converging into it like silk. The ghost chef's lips curled into an evil smile. He stepped into the store. In his mind, the people in the store were definitely in the midst of comprehending the path understanding fruit, and he had to obtain one at this time. After consuming the secret meat soup, the ghost chef's cultivation level had stepped into the 8th grade realm, and he had even regained his youthful vigor. This was where his confidence came from. However, as soon as he stepped into the store, his expression changed. The people in the store all looked at him with puzzled eyes, not knowing what this guy who had stepped into the store with such an aggressive attitude wanted to do. The ghost chef's eyes narrowed, and his gaze fell on the path understanding tree in the corner. The path understanding tree's branches and leaves were luxuriant, overflowing with light and vibrant colors. Spirit energy scattered in all directions, and it looked very healthy. However, the path understanding fruit on it had disappeared. Obviously, it had been divided up. Damn it! I'm too late! The ghost chef cursed under his breath, and then his gaze fell on the crowd. You guys divided up the path understanding fruit? Whoever obtained the path understanding fruit, hand it over, and this old man will spare his life. The ghost chef was flustered and exasperated. He really needed the path understanding fruit, and for it, he had even consumed the secret meat soup with extreme side effects. For the path understanding fruit, he couldn't care less. The group of people sitting in the store were all waiting for Owner Boo's path understanding fruit dish. Who knew that at this time, a guy would run in and shamelessly demand that they hand over the path understanding fruit, hand over your sister, hand over. We also need the path understanding fruit. Zhang Kong and Bian Chongkong looked at the ghost chef with unfriendly eyes. They had planned to spend a lot of money, but they still couldn't buy the path understanding fruit from Owner Boo. Where did this random guy come from? And he actually dared to threaten them to hand over the spirit fruit. Who the hell were you? So Zhang Kong stood up, his face extremely gloomy. The anger he had suffered because of Owner Boo seemed to have found a target to vent on. Bian Chongkong also stood up. After taking the elixir in time, his injuries had recovered considerably. The two of them walked with gloomy faces toward the ghost chef, who was standing at the door yelling in exasperation. The old drunkard laughed heartily, and gulped down a mouthful of wine, ready to watch a good show. You too. Do you want to die? The ghost chef's eyes narrowed, and he threatened them sinisterly. He was now an 8th grade war god, a realm that he had no enemies. Were these two ants looking for death? His heart was swelling at the moment. Who are you threatening? Bien Chongkong said coldly, and swung a slap at the ghost chef, whistling down. The ghost chef's face froze, and he shouted angrily, Die! Slap! The ghost chef was stunned. He blocked Bien Chongkong's slap, but not Zhang Kong's. His face immediately turned red and swollen. What the hell? What was going on? His 8th grade cultivation was actually slapped swollen? The ghost chef was enraged. The aura on his body rose, and surging true energy rolled out. Slap. Another slap. Zhang Kong was merciless. His face was gloomy, and the eyes under the silver mask were full of mockery. Who do you think you are to dare threaten this commander? Zhang Kong said coldly. He couldn't beat that dog, but he couldn't beat this random guy who jumped out of nowhere? Damn it. Go to hell. Boundless black energy surged out of the ghost chef's body, and his exasperated voice was mixed with an angry roar. Bang! However, before he could use this move, he was kicked away by Bien Chongkong. His whole body flew out of the store and crashed into the ruins of the alleyway. Idiot! Bien Chongkong and Zhang Kong looked at each other, smiled faintly, and rushed out of the store. At this moment, their hearts were filled with a sense of grievance, and they urgently needed to vent. Where did this idiot come from? It was just the right time for them to vent. Blackie lazily lay in front of the store, and lazily watched the almost one-sided massacre in the alleyway. Its doggy mouth opened, and it yawned. The ghost chef's miserable howls rang out incessantly. The ghost chef thought he was going to show off his skills, but he didn't expect that he would be beaten up by two terrifying guys halfway through his act. He, who was completely defenseless, suddenly realized that these were two real 8th grade war gods. Xiao Meng leaned against the store's door and looked at the miserable ghost chef, who was howling incessantly, and a sense of satisfaction flashed through his heart. Who told you to spread the news and make the entire imperial city a mess? Now you're getting beaten up. People like you will definitely be beaten up. Xiao Meng was gloating. Suddenly, a thick aroma wafted out of the kitchen, carrying with it a strange meaning. Everyone's mind was shaken, and they were momentarily stunned. Then, they looked toward the kitchen with anticipation. It seemed that Owner Boo's dish was about to be completed. Chapter 231. The true energy vortex within his body was almost dried up. Bufang's complexion became slightly pale and his forehead was covered in beads of sweat. Buzz, a strange fluctuation surged out from the steamer. Bufang's eyes suddenly lit up. He loosened his grip on the steamer and cut off the flow of true energy. He took a step back and let out a long sigh. It's finally done. My true energy was almost used up. This dish requires too much true energy cultivation level. Bufang muttered to himself. His cultivation level was only at 5th grade Battle King, which was far from enough. For some high-grade ingredients, cooking with true energy could even drain him dry. Fortunately, Bufang reckoned that his recent turnover was about to reach a breakthrough. Once he reached 6th grade Battle Emperor, his total amount of true energy would increase by a lot. When that time came, he would be able to cook with true energy and handle high-grade ingredients more easily. Looking at the steamer that was emitting thick steam and emitting a rich fragrance, Bufang could not help but lick his lip. This fragrance had a kind of enticing power that made him want to gorge himself. When the lid of the steamer was opened, thick steam immediately rushed out and hit the ceiling. It spread out, accompanied by a fragrance and a strange fluctuation that could clear one's mind. Waving his hand to disperse the steam in front of him, Bufang's gaze fell on the steamer. There was a faint radiance emerging from within the steamer. The radiance was not dazzling, but it was slightly obscure. A dish that emits light. The corners of Bufang's mouth curled up as he felt a sense of accomplishment. When the dish was taken out from the steamer, the scalding heat made Bufang exhale lightly. The dish was placed on the stove. The light from the kitchen shone on the dish as if it was reflecting light, dazzling one's eyes. On the blue and white porcelain plate was a fat fish. It was a vivid and lifelike fish that seemed to have come to life. Thick vitality and strange fluctuations circulated on the fish's body. As steam rose, it seemed as if it was riding on clouds. The fish's fins slightly swayed and flapped. Cloud patterns gathered above the dish like layers of clouds, and the fish looked like a dragon swimming in the clouds. This was a very eye-catching dish. At least, when Bufang saw this dish, he was amazed. This was the charm of cooking. No one could predict what the final product would be like. This dish somewhat exceeds my expectations. It's very beautiful, Bufang muttered. Then, he began to think about the name of this dish. Steamed enlightenment fish? That sounds a little too straightforward. Is that called leaping through the dragon's gate? Not bad, we can have that. Bufang's eyes were shining brightly. He decided on the final name of this dish, jumping over the dragon gate. The fat fish that ate the path-understanding fruit began to leap through the dragon gate, which was quite symbolic. System, what's your evaluation of this dish? Bufang asked expectantly. This time, the system did not immediately give Bufang an answer. It was silent for a long time before it solemnly said, Dish name, jumping over the dragon gate. Chef, host Bufang. Dish spirit energy content, 90%. Path understanding factor, 90%. Final evaluation. After a 7th grade battle saint consumes it, he will definitely break through to 8th grade war god. Therefore, evaluation passed. Snap! As soon as the system finished speaking, the corners of Bufang's mouth curled up. He snapped his fingers to express his delight. It was indeed passed. The process of making this jumping over the dragon gate seemed simple, but every step was a test of the chef's foundation. Be it the handling of the fish at the beginning or the control of true energy during the steaming process. The requirements of every step were extremely strict. There was no room for error. Once a mistake was made, it would be easy to waste all previous efforts. In order to control the spirit energy content of the dish, Bufang used the steaming method. This method was the easiest to preserve the spirit energy of the ingredient. In order to preserve the path understanding factor, Bufang first smeared the juice of the path understanding fruit into the fish. This way, the path understanding factor would be perfectly preserved after steaming, and would not be lost like when it was cooked. Taking a deep breath, Bufang suppressed the joy in his heart. System, since this dish has passed the evaluation, it means that the temporary task has been completed, right? Then this dish, can I choose to sell it? Congratulations to the host for completing the temporary task. Using the 5 stripes path understanding fruit to create a dish and passing the evaluation of the system. The task reward will be issued soon. The dish is allowed to be sold. The system is evaluating the dish's price. This time, the evaluation of the dish did not take long before the system gave an answer. Jumping over the dragon gate, elixir cuisine, price, 555 crystals. Bufang was taken aback. 555 crystals for a dish. This was the most expensive dish the system had evaluated so far. Gulp. Bufang's heart suddenly burned with passion. If this dish was sold, then his turnover would directly meet the requirements for promotion. Holding the jumping over the dragon gate, Bufang slowly walked toward the store. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, a slender and thin figure slowly walked out from the shadows of the kitchen. Bufang's hands carried a dish that was overflowing with color, emitting thick steam and a fragrant aroma. The dish was beautiful, as if it was riding on the clouds, and one could not help but be mesmerized. Zhang Kong and Bian Changkong also walked in from the door with their fists clenched. Both of their faces revealed a satisfied expression. In the alleyway, the ghost chef Wang Ding was incomparably miserable. His face was swollen like a pig's head, and he was constantly coughing up blood. His breath was on the verge of collapsing. His eyes were spitting fire, but more than that there was fear. Bu Fang placed the dish on the table, and a rich aroma slowly spread out, slowly lingering in the store, making people feel relaxed and happy. Owner Bu, is this a dish made from the path understanding fruit? The old drunkard put down his wine gourd, staring at the dish with wide eyes, and could not help but ask. Bu Fang nodded lightly and looked at the crowd. This dish is made from the 5 stripes path understanding fruit, and it can definitely help a 7th grade battle saint step into the realm of 8th grade war god. Hiss hiss hiss. As soon as Bu Fang's words came out, the crowd sucked in a breath of cold air. Even the 5 stripes path understanding fruit could not guarantee a 7th grade battle saint would step into the 8th grade, but Bu Fang dared to say that a dish could definitely help a 7th grade battle saint step into the 8th grade. How confident was he? Owner Bu must be joking. How could there be such a mysterious dish in this world? The old drunkard was in disbelief, and so were the others. Bu Fang pulled out a chair, sat down, and let out a long breath. Making this Dragon Gate leap had consumed a lot of his physical strength and experience. This dish, this store will only make it once. In the future, even if you want to try it, you will not have the chance, so it is very precious. As for the effect of the dish, you can eat it first. If it does not guarantee 100% breakthrough, then you don't have to pay. Bu Fang's tone was calm, but it was full of confidence in his dish. The crowd could not help but look at the Dragon Gate leap seriously, and their minds were drawn in. I wonder how much this dish costs? Zhang Kong asked with a frown. This was also a question that the crowd was curious about, so they all looked at Bu Fang. Bu Fang curled the corner of his mouth, raised his slender and fair finger, and pointed at the menu behind the crowd. The crowd was taken aback, and turned their heads to look. Their pupils shrank, and then they all cried out in surprise. 5,550 crystals for a dish? Oh my God! How could this dish be so expensive? Owner Bu, you are extorting and blackmailing us. The crowd was shocked by the price of the Dragon Gate leap. 5,550 crystals for a serving, it was comparable to the net worth of an ordinary 7th grade battle saint. However, in the eyes of experts like Zhang Kong, Bu Fang's dish was actually not expensive, and could even be considered cheap. If it could really help a battle saint break through to the battle god level, then it would not be an exaggeration to say that it was cheap. There is only one serving of this dish. Whether you buy it or not, you only have one chance. This store will not make this dish in the future, Bu Fang said. Owner Bu, I will buy this dish, Zhang Kong said without hesitation. He had promised to get a path understanding fruit for Wu Yunbai. Since he could not get the path understanding fruit, he had to buy this dish. I will buy it too, Bian Chongkong said. The two of them had been fighting over the path understanding fruit, and this time, they were competing over the price. Owner Bu, I want to buy it too. Xiao Meng looked at the Dragon Gate leap with excitement and said to Bu Fang. Bu Fang did not answer him. There was only one dish, but there were many people. The final decision would depend on who offered the highest price. And when it came to the price, the old drunkard drank a mouthful of wine, slammed the wine gourd on the table, and laughed wildly. 10,000 crystals, I will buy it. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.